Good to see your cameras. Good evening and welcome. And you will state your name and where you're from, and you may remove your mask. Thank you.
Eric Mata, Canterville. Just curious, what are there special masks that the city is spending on for people that want to use a mask in a pool? Which, I mean, personally, I think it sounds ridiculous. It sounds kind of dangerous, to be honest with you.
I just asked because I was just curious, you know, curiosity got me, yeah, exactly, but
Spending resources for that.
and they're probably not too expensive, are they, Ms. Marks?
No, they're not.
Yeah.
They're neoprene, and they have a spout hole here and two on the side. And they're being used at other pools across the country because there are people that are worried about
COVID.
getting other kids' faces in the pool, not the water, but just the spitting and stuff like that. And so we got a limited supply, and they will be for sale if someone wanted to
Okay,
buy one
for
for their
sale.
child and
Okay.
put it on. We're just gonna see how it goes, see if it's marketable or not. But they're really cool. I'll have to show you.
Okay.
And there are colors too.
Okay. And how much are they, Ms. Marks?
They were gonna be $5.95
Oh.
or something like that.
Okay.
But they are neoprene, so they're
Yeah.
not gonna disintegrate in the pool and cause problems with the pumps and so on.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay. Did you have another, okay? You bet.
I know Mrs. Sawyer's really big on the swim team thing, and I think that's a great idea. My only issue would be, I know over the years, it's kind of disappointing to show up to the pool to use it to find out there's swim practice and it's not open to the public, so I'm sure there can be some kind of compromise on that, but it sounds like early practice might be better, especially after the fact that we lost out on last summer's season. The other problem, I think, with inviting outside of Leon Valley residents is if we're limited, then that obviously could cut into the amount of Leon Valley users. So I also know that, you know, many times we don't have 60 people at the pool, so I can understand her point on that as well, but something to keep in mind. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. I'm just excited that the pool's open this summer for an option for everyone. Okay, anyone else? Yes, Counselor Stevens, and then we'll move on to the next presentation after we finish this discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question for you regarding, so earlier on in the presentation, it said that the community pool is closed on Mondays. Is that, why is Monday? Why Monday?
You know, operationally, we've done that in years past. It wouldn't have to be. We have, it really helps with the water quality to have it closed at least one day.
Okay, so I was just, because I pulled up, Ms. Moritz had given, I think Jed and I, some utilization data from like 2018 and 2019, and I pulled it up, and the community pool is like very clearly graphed. The highest utilization day is actually Monday. It's not even a weekend day, so that was my question. The Forest Oaks pool, we all had it closed Tuesday, and like that's probably the best idea, but it was broken down by day, so it just may be something that we consider. But it does show also to the 60-person capacity. It appears that it never, you know, and there may have been little small peaks in the day, but it really never went above 60 people, like throughout when they did the checks and stuff. So I would just reconsider the Monday, maybe move it to another day in the week.
Yes, sure. We can definitely look into that, and that, you know, that one day really helps us with just getting the water back to where, you know, it needs to be. But it doesn't have to be Monday.
Right.
Tuesday. You know,
Right. It looks like Wednesday and Thursday are the lowest utilization days, according to the graph.
Very good, thank you. We just need to advertise.
I can still speak.
Okay.
This is masks at
And I
pool.
believe, Mr. Miller, did you
Masks
have your
at the
hand
pool?
up in the foyer, and I noticed it, so if you'll come forward, please, and state your name and where you're from, and you may remove your mask. Thank you. Thank you, Billy.
I think it's Jack Miller
Canterfield. And I think it's just easier if I just keep it on because it's hard to take off, hard to put on.
How do you feel?
And so on wearing the masks at the pool, great idea, right? 'Cause we are definitely don't want anything, any kind of virus. And I'm just curious how that's going to be enforced. I didn't hear anybody talking about like how we're going to enforce that. So obviously, if there's nobody there enforcing it, some people are going to.
No, it's only if they want to wear.
If they want to, I see. Okay. If for any reason, let's say we were to start, cases were to start spiking and we were to have to go back to the whole enforcing thing, I wanted to nominate one of the Leon Valley police officers, Detective Anderson. He could be there, give him a nice little cute lifeguard outfit, and he could do the mask enforcement. That's all I had to say.
Okay,
Thank you, Mayor.
thank you. Yes, Counselor Stevens.
So point of order, I was wondering, I know there's a lot of people here for agenda item 4.8. Can we just move up to that and then move back to resuming the normal agenda?
Okay.
I know it may be a long agenda item, but I know it's a lot.
We want to make a motion and let's do a second.
Yeah, so I motion that we go ahead and discuss agenda item 4.8 regarding the amendment for animal control. And then,
Thank you, David. Do appreciate it. We have a motion by Counselor Stevens and a second by Counselor Bradshaw to move agenda item 4.8 next due to the interest in this particular agenda item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion does carry. Let me move then to agenda item 4.8. Presentation, discussion, and direction on proposed amendment to Chapter 3, Animal Control, prohibiting retail sale of canines and felines by pet stores unless the canine or feline was obtained from a city or agency or rescue organization licensed by the city of Leon Valley. And we have Brandon here, Brandon Malone from the zoning commission to present. But before you begin, I just want to let you know that I put this on the agenda when I met with Crystal last week because we had a request at the last council meeting to address this, and then I had two more citizens text me about this agenda item, so I thought, well, let's just put it on for discussion. It's not to vote on an ordinance, it's even just to discuss it. And it was, I think it was last year, after the city of San Antonio passed this ordinance, and it's in our packet. I did get approached by Petland and their organization, and at that time, it was silent. I had nobody talking about this issue at all. And so, we've just moved forward. But now that I've gotten people to ask us to address it. We represent the people, and we need to address their concerns or their questions or whatever they want. So this is the reason why it's on the agenda for this evening. So I just wanted to give that background. And so, Mr. Long, if you'll begin, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Absolutely, my presentation is really short. I'm just here to kind of cue this up for discussion. And so, just to provide some background information, this discussion would pertain to canines and felines specifically. Again, as the mayor pointed out, in October 2020, the city of San Antonio passed their ordinance. That's attached, I think, in the agenda packet. It's a pretty long ordinance, but the general gist of it is, I tried to capture the general gist of that one passage right there. I'm going to read out: pet shop shall not sell, lease, or offer for sale, trade, give away, or otherwise transfer a cat or dog unless the cat or dog was obtained from a city or county animal shelter or an animal control agency or an animal rescue organization licensed by the department. So in my looking at it, that last section there is kind of a key thing, because what that enables the city to do is decide if y'all did decide to move forward with something like this, y'all get to set those prerequisites or those character qualifications for what a licensed organization is. And so that's really the main takeaway from that ordinance that I can see reading through. Again, we don't regulate pet stores. We don't regulate their operations, how they do business, where they get their dogs and cats from. We did recently do a large overhaul to our animal ordinance, which Councilor Hefner was a huge part of. And so most cities have an animal ordinance. City of San Antonio does too. Their ordinance they passed, that language, those regulations are located in their animal ordinance. So if the city of Leon Valley looked at doing something and mirroring what the city of San Antonio did, just looking through all the different chapters we have in our code of ordinances, the animal ordinance would most likely be the most appropriate place to house those regulations. We do have an animal animal code enforcement officer. So that's, the staff that you would be looking at potentially enforcing certain regulations. So that's kind of the structure of how their codes are set up and how potential codes here in the work. So, with that, I'm just going to turn it over to the council for discussion. I'm here to answer any questions.
How many pet stores do we have in Leon Valley? I know we have Petland, I thought we had another one too.
We have Petland, and we have another new store that just opened up. It's called Texas Puppy Store. It's got a black sign. They're on the west side of Bandera Road, over in the shopping center, right behind Tia's Taco Hut. They've been there for about 3 months now. We have, to my knowledge, we have 2 stores.
And Petland's been here, I'd say 9 or 10 years, they've been here for quite some time, so, okay, very good. And, so I know we opened it up for discussion. I do believe I've given Councilor Bradshaw, you have a letter to read, and I believe somebody else has one, that's pertaining to this agenda item. I don't know if you want to read it now, or if you want to, yes, Councilor Edwards, if you'll go ahead, and then Councilor Bradshaw, and then we'll continue the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, this is from Jason Rowe. To whom it may concern, Texas Puppy Store is a business new to Leon Valley as of January 2021. We currently have 10 employees. We have taken over an end cap in a business center that had been vacant for 10 years. We have cleaned up the center. Our landlord is extremely happy we've opened our business here. We have improved traffic in the center with a growing customer base. We have already established a large clientele providing a puppy to join their family. In a short period of time, we already have return customers. We have a great relationship with online. Our store provides space where puppies can be seen and interacted with before making a secure decision. Our puppies also have current vaccinations and a health guarantee for our customers' peace of mind. We will be establishing relationships with multiple local rescues to come to our store on weekends with older rescue dogs looking for homes. Leon Valley has been a great city for us to start a new business in. In these times of economic uncertainty, we are providing jobs, we are generating city tax revenue, we're giving the local community security in the purchase of a new puppy. We're looking forward to working with the city and local animal rescue. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me directly. Sincerely, Jason Duhamel, I believe, owner of Texas Puppy Store.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yes, Councilor Bradshaw?
Evening, Mayor and Council. I would like to express my concern over the new store called the Puppy Store. Designer puppies that sell for quite a high price should never be allowed in my city. Just as San Antonio had decided and made it illegal to buy and sell puppies from any brick and mortar store, so should our city make an ordinance to do the same. Our city has enough of a problem with stray dogs or dogs that are dropped off and abandoned. This then becomes our city's responsibility to take care of and find homes for them. Allowing this type of store to remain here only makes our job of the strays a more difficult one to solve. Puppy mills have a huge inhumane reputation. By allowing the puppy store to remain in Leon Valley helps to perpetuate the problem of puppies for profit and the existence of puppy mills. I ask for you to consider my thoughts carefully going forward respectfully. Tina Jason, Bohl.
Okay, thank you. All right. Oh, you have another letter. Okay, Councilor Orozco, thank you. Did I get that to you, or did somebody else send it to you? Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Yes, good morning. We are reaching out today regarding item 8 on Leon Valley City Council agenda, a presentation, discussion, and direction, and a proposed amendment of Chapter 3 Animal Control for the retail sale of canine and feline by pet stores. Unless a canine or feline was obtained from the city or county animal shelter, animal control agency, or a rescue organization licensed by the city of Leon Valley, and has Brandon Milan, planning and zoning director. We want to make sure that you are aware that local franchise owners of the Petland store in Leon Valley for over 10 years, we are also small business owners would be adversely affected by the portions of the proposed changes to Chapter 3 that are up for presentation and discussion today. At a time when we need to get people to work and keep them at work, this would cost Leon Valley jobs. Mr. Jaime Trujillo and Mr. David Moreno, co-owners of Petland Leon Valley, welcome the opportunity to meet with you via phone or virtually at your earliest convenience to share more about their store and their work and they have done in particular to the city of Leon Valley to help find homes for rescued animals. Please feel free to call me, text me with any questions. We want to get this formal request to you as quickly as possible, as well as provide you with attached information.
Okay, excellent, thank you, do appreciate that. Okay, I have a hand raised, excuse me just a second. Is there any of the other counselors that would like to weigh in on this topic before I open it up to our citizens in the chambers? Yes, Counselor Stevens.
I'm just going to add that the email that was just read by Councilor Orozco, there was actually an attachment to it as well. And I think...
Would you like to read it?
No, it's super long.
Okay.
But I just wanted to add that notation, and then I would encourage, because it's interesting.
Okay. All right, very good. Okay, thank you. Mr. Bohl, I believe you had your hand up. And, good evening and welcome.
Yes, thank you. My name is Evan Bohl, Forest Oaks Canfield. So already you've received a few emails for and against the proposed situation. What Mr. Brandon obviously could not go through, and which is in all our packets, was that just from 2019 up until they passed and conducted the surveys in San Antonio. San Antonio did a fantastic job of doing the studies about the situation and how the community felt about the source of these stores as animals. No one said these businesses should absolutely go away. They had a concern with the source of these animals, and nationwide studies have been conducted. Unfortunately, the facts are not in favor of these businesses because already, just the brief things, currently 380 plus cities restrict the retail sales of dogs and cats, just outright. And then alone in the San Antonio area, and since we are Leon Valley and we're surrounded by San Antonio, we're kind of like the unmentioned siblings of sorts in the San Antonio politics area, but only about 522 cases are related to pet sales investigated from October 2019 to the time of this presentation for one officer to deal with. At the time this was being done in San Antonio, many of us here, even locally, were supporting it. I myself have been in animal rescue since I was 14. I've been well aware of this situation, and what San Antonio came up with is what we, the citizens, have been wanting for over a decade plus. Does not say they can't conduct business, doesn't hurt their business. It simply tells them they will no longer be complicit in exacerbating an already bad issue of stray populations. Leon Valley does not have a strong animal control program of its own. Doing this would actually take one step closer to perhaps partnering, since we're across city lines, partnering with San Antonio's ACS in having a strong animal care program and ensuring ethical business and the reduction of strays, the partnering with more than just a few rescue organizations on a weekend here or 2 or 3. This would be for good across the board all week long, and everyone will want to buy an animal just the same. Do I personally believe you should buy an animal for $1,200? You should loan out with double-digit APR financing for an animal? No. But you know what? It would be that way.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Bohl, for those comments. Do appreciate it. All right. Anyone else in the chambers like to address the council at this time? Please come forward. Just state your name and where you're from. No specific address. Good evening and welcome. Hi, how are you? Yes,
My name
ma'am.
is Laura Samana, resident of Leon Valley for 11 years,
Okay,
and also employed as manager at the Petland Leon Valley
Okay.
for the past 4 years. So I have prepared statements that just hearing the bear with me because sometimes off the cuff, you bumble a little bit. So, I have worked in rescue for about 10 years, volunteer, not employed. San Antonio Humane Society. I have fostered and I have adopted from Animal Care Services. I have worked with Andy Garcia, the previous Valley Animal Control Officer, and also now with Heather. I'm one of those, I see it on the street, I can just walk away, I've got to get them up and try to find them and reunite them. And, I am a strong advocate for rescue. Now having worked with Petland, I have been able to get I have always felt, yes, we have so many strays. It's overpopulation. You go to certain areas and they're just everywhere, and it's heartbreaking and you can't help them all. There's a wonderful underground rescue network that do a great job, and I know they're feeling strained and overloaded and overwhelmed. Pet stores, or I can speak for Petland, I cannot speak for the Texas Puppy Store. I know Jaime Trevon, I know David Moreno. I see what they do firsthand. I've come in and I see that we are not part of the problem. We are not. We are not getting from puppy mills. There is a huge misnomer. You have a orange folder that gives all the stats and all the information. At San Antonio council meeting, I was there. Heber Lefgren himself said that it's not really an overpopulation issue, it's a responsible pet stewardship issue. There's so many owner surrenders. There's still a lot of families that are not microchipping the dogs, that are not having ID tags on the dogs. They get out, they get lost, they just get in the system. There is a system there. So Petland is open to working with the shelters. They just kind of close the door on it. We are the problem. They cannot regulate. They don't know the inner workings. And so they want to just kind of stop it. Whereas these gentlemen, who've been in Leon Valley for 11 years, or they have been in Leon Valley for 11 years, they have a vast network. They know the breeders that are doing right and are doing wrong. They can help. Why cripple someone who can help you? Why not join forces and really tackle what needs to be done, which is regulation? The Animal Welfare Act has the minimum standards. Puppy mills are going by those minimum standards. The Petland breeders are not. They are highly regulated. And our breeders don't have violations. So, thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you for coming and appreciate those comments. All right, yes, ma'am. If you'll please come to the podium and state your name and just wait. Either one goes first and then the next one after that. We want to hear from everyone. So, yes, ma'am, good evening and welcome. And your name and where you live.
My name is Jamie Stewart, and I just recently moved, but I'm in Venezuela.
Okay, very good.
So I've been a manager at Leon Valley Petland for over 2 years. I've been with Petland for over 3 years. It has really become a family affair. My 2 oldest kids also work with me here. We've done rescue rehabilitation, mostly birds, on kind of the crazy paralegal there. I love my job. I get to hear everyone's stories. I mean, how else can you go about your day knowing that a situation or an experience that you've been through could help change someone's life? We're there to help educate. That is the whole purpose. Whether or not you get an animal from us, or a shelter, or a rescue, we are all for it. But come to us if you have questions, because we will help you through the problem. That's what Petland is all about. Educating and strengthening that bond between humans and animals. That's the most important thing. If you're not in love, it's not going to work. So that's what we're there to help find the best fit. Sometimes it's a puppy, Sometimes it's a very loud cockatoo, sometimes it's just a beautiful bait of fish. That's our whole purpose. And taking that away from people is just going to be hindering the whole purpose of what that bond means to people. Because I love shellfish as much as anybody, but they're overworked, underappreciated, and my heart goes out to them because what they do every day is tough. What I do every day is tough too. I get people coming in and asking me questions all the time, and I do my best to help. Not everyone's going to listen, as you well know, council members, but you try. Every day you go out and try. And Petland has been, been part of the Avon Valley here for so many years. Our clientele is expensive. Returning clients is expensive. With COVID happening and the scamming, people getting cut out of hundreds of not thousands of dollars for a puppy they never seen, our transparency proves that we are doing everything possible, not just for the well-being of the animal, but for the well-being of the customer, because they deserve that, and so do the animals. Thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you, Jenny, for those comments. And Ms. Bohl, you're next. Good evening.
I love what you said. It's good. You do have your responsible pet owner. That is the main problem. However, being and volunteering in rescue, you wet into the design belief that they are bought with pet landing. You know, the puppy store. They get thrown out on the street. And it is the rescue that has to keep up the slack. We don't need to continue, especially in China, adding to that problem. And no, education is great, but when we have a majority of the people not listening, it doesn't work. And so the problem keeps multiplying. So I'd like that the city council is going to do this. If they're going to do it, because we need it. And I would like to do it the rest of my time together.
Okay. Very good. I'm not sure how much time you have left to it. Yes, Mr. About a minute? Okay. All right. A minute, yes.
Thank you. So, in the past, we've had Petland here for many years. However, we didn't have the council strong enough to be bringing this before and actually have the will to pass such an ordinance. We've also received well over 70 plus responses locally that are in favor of holding these businesses to an ethical business model. And yes, it is a business model. You sell the stories. That's what it's about. But where we're sourcing these, we need to prevent animals from coming from cross state lines into our area. We need to work on ensuring the animals already here find homes here, and ensure that those great stories are great stories for the animals already here, not coming from out of state. And this is just one step in the grand journey to achieve such a thing. And hopefully in those states where those businesses are and those warehouses are, that regulations will come to them. It's already happening. Washington State just passed, the whole state just passed a law that bans puppy mills and the sale of animals entirely throughout the state. One day I hope Texas will be that way. But right now, all constituents are in favor of going forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, yes. Mr. Moreno and then Mr. Amata. Good evening and welcome.
My name is David Moreno, I'm one of the owners of Petland. We've been in the city of Leon Valley for about 11 years. We're at our great company, room cutting, and we love being in Petland. I love being in Leon Valley, love participating in the puppy parade and helping with the mask handout. Earlier there were presentations about economic development, retention, and growth. They're right on track. For us, an ordinance like San Antonio passed would eliminate our store. We would close our store 15 employees unemployed, our roughly, our sales for, that's taxable for the city would be gone. One of the questions that people ask is about where we get our puppies from. And you see things on TV, you see things on the internet. We get our puppies from USDA licensed and registered breeders that get inspected every year, much like a restaurant gets inspected. If you're a breeder with the USDA, you get inspected annually. We don't get puppies from anyone that doesn't have a clean inspection for 2 straight years. You have to be like that. Not only is it morally correct, but we offer warranties for our puppies. So our puppy goes home, something happens in the first 2 weeks, we take care of it. There's a 3-year congenital hereditary warranty. You can't have those warranties if you're getting puppies from bad places. We know where we're getting our puppies from because we go and we visit the breeders. We may not do the inspection the same way as the United States Department of Agriculture. They're very stringent, but we see the way the adults are living. And that's what we go by. Is this a good place? The other part of how we take care of our puppies at the store, we have a vet that comes to our store every time a puppy arrives. They inspect the puppy, and if there's anything going on with the puppy, it's their determination in terms of their medication. If there's a certain amount of time, no puppy from us goes home that's on medication. It's all kind of driven by whatever our vets tell us. And the way to do that is to get puppies from good places. If you don't get puppies from good places, breeders you've been to, breeders that are registered and inspected that have no violations, if you don't get puppies from there, you're going to end up having sick puppies, you're going to end up having vet bills, you're going to end up having customers not come back to us. We have a huge repeat customer base. In the end, we're open to showing city council or whether it's animal care services exactly where we get our puppies from. Here's the puppy, here's the microchip, here's the USDA report. Being perfectly transparent, we have nothing to hide about where we get our puppies from. We get our puppies from good places. We know where we get our puppies from, so we wouldn't be afraid of showing you where we get our puppies from. In the end, we want to be here. We've been here for 11 years. We want to be here for another 11 years if possible. If you guys have any questions for me, if you guys have any questions later for us to provide you, just let me know.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, Councilor Edwards.
So the revenue that's generated by the sale of puppies, that's what percentage is that of your business?
About 85. We don't do well in pet supplies anymore. We used to do pretty well with pet supplies, but PetSmart, Petco, H-E-B, Target, Walmart, and the killer, Amazon. Pet supplies is just not, anywhere we can make money because we can't buy them in volume that they can buy. Okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Yes, Mr. Moreno, I'm sorry. Councilor Orozco had a question for you, and then
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Moreno.
I did see this coming out a couple of months ago, and I did visit your store, and I visited the new one as well. And I think that the lady there is paramedic. She was very professional and very transparent with me as far as things were going. I do have a couple of questions. Is there anything puppy that you don't sell, and if you don't, what you do with it?
No, all puppies sell. There's a price that starts out, and after 2 weeks, if the puppy's still with us, we lower the price. We lower the price, lower the price. No matter what, it's going to be at a price that somebody likes. So there's every puppy ends up in
I talked to some people in San Antonio, and says they put a restriction on this. There's been black market puppies out there, and also price gouging. How true is that?
That was true. I mean, even now, people buy things on the internet and they can get scammed because for us, our puppies are in the windows. You can come in, and if you want to play with the puppy, you play with the puppy. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Most people don't. Most people, there's probably 3 or 4% of any pet that goes home comes from a pet store. Most are from rescues and shelters. But you come in, and if you want a puppy, you get a puppy. On the internet, you have nothing like that. You can't touch the puppy. You can't look at the puppy. So there is a lot of scams. But even now on the internet, obviously if there's been a pet store to go to, obviously there'd be more.
And there's been price gouging. Have you raised your prices as well since they closed San Antonio?
No, I mean, our prices are still the same. What happened during COVID was the supply went down because breeders couldn't, they couldn't breed as often because they couldn't transport. So, their prices went up a little, ours prices went up a little, but nothing like gouging or anything.
Also, in the AKA, when I'm trying to find this out on the computer, they treat the animals professionally and very caring and loving, and they have their vets. How often is a dog bred, and what do they do with them after they breed them?
So it typically once a year. And after they're a certain age, it's usually about 4, they're either adopted out or given to friends and family. The adult dogs, there's nothing wrong with a 4-year-old beagle. They simply give them to, or adopt them out.
Okay. All right, that's all I got, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Counselor Stevens, did you have some questions for Mr. Moreno? Yes.
I did. Thanks, Mr. Moreno, for coming and joining us this evening. I have 2 questions. 85% of your business sales are puppies, or is that animals combined?
Puppy sales, but pretty much. Maybe it really is about 80 puppies and then 5%
Other
birds.
animals?
Yeah, other small animals. Right.
Okay. And then I just have a question. It's not but why do you like being a co-owner of Petland?
When I used to work at AT&T, I was in an accounting role, and it was just pushing paper and numbers. And the thing that I always liked, as I grew up with pets, was a opportunity to have a business where you get to play with puppies, you get to play with small animals, you get to play with birds. I never thought I'd like birds. I bought 2 birds since I was home, Petland, but it's a different type of job. You have the paper pushing, but you get to see and play with puppies and fish and anything. It's a different environment. It's like being, if you love animals, working at a zoo. You know, that experience of you're around things that are so much easier to be with than your boss if you work at AT&T.
They don't talk back at you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Yes. Mr. Mata, you're next.
Yes.
Eric Mata, Canterfield. I come up here, and I'm not going to pretend that I know a lot about this issue of puppy mills. So I don't mean to sound insensitive, but as a council, we've said we're going to be business friendly. And before we pull the trigger on an ordinance that would quite clearly put a couple of our businesses, local businesses, out of business, I think we should be patient and we should look into it further. I think in a lot of cases, we see city, state, federal government make policy based on feel-good reasoning, and I mean, that's fine that San Antonio did that, you know, if that's how they wanted to go, that's fine. We are an independent city. The idea that we follow them and don't think independently, I think is pretty ridiculous. So based on that alone, I don't think we should do this until we've looked into it further. It's almost like we're creating a problem that does not necessarily exist here with our pet stores until we've looked into it further. I think it'd be a bad move. So I suggest you guys don't rush to do something like this, because it definitely will affect these businesses. I have no doubt about it. My daughter and I, over the course of years, have gone over to Petland. We bought a couple of snakes and lizards there. The woman with the color had a wonderful experience with her. She's great, and that was a memorable experience. So there's no reason, and I think it kind of runs parallel to the aquarium. I think in a lot of ways we've given them a hard time as a business without really knowing the facts. And I think as long as you guys look into it and are certain that there's a problem, you shouldn't touch this. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a dialogue. This is all this is today. Yes, Councilor Bradshaw.
So Mayor, I sat here kind of listening to both sides, and I'm just wondering, it was mentioned earlier, it's brought up about Petland kind of holding their breeders to higher standards, right, than puppy mills. And so I'm just wondering if we could possibly come to a compromise, some kind of compromise where, you know, maybe Mr. Milan, maybe Mr. Koch goes and meets with these businesses and says, okay, what are these higher standards and how could we, you know, write those into our code to make sure that we're not, you know, sourcing from puppy mills and things like that. And you know, I'm well aware of the issues, the inbreeding and health issues that come from those, you know, puppy mill type of facilities. So, you know, I think to Mr. Ma's point, if we, you know, try to work with these businesses to come to a compromise.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for those comments. Yes, Councilor, Mr. Martinez. Good evening.
Mayor, Council. I just want to say, I agree with Mr. Mata and Mr. Councilor Bradshaw. We need to really take a look at this issue. But I'm hearing from Petland that they are doing the right thing, and it hasn't been an issue for 11 years. Let's take a look, and I think we can create. We have to create or craft an ordinance that'll protect them and also get rid of the puppy mills. I think there's a fine line we can work through it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Caldera, will you say that there is litigation currently in the city of San Antonio on this issue?
According to Petland, so according to the conversation I had with Mrs. Hernandez that is representing Petland, there is current litigation going on with the city of San Antonio in regards to this regulation. And I think it's included in the attachment that I sent. I haven't read the entire attachment yet, but it goes over the regulations of for cities trying to employ these regulations. So, you know, I would just, you know, if that's something you want us to, if you really want us to look into an ordinance, before I instructed staff to put all this time and effort, I wanted to see where the council laid on this subject. And so if y'all had no interest in looking into this ordinance, then I wasn't going to spend the staff resources to do that. But if this is something y'all want to do, then I got to look at the legal side of it, and I would have our attorney look at that to see if we can even incorporate these higher standards in our code. I don't know if we've seen it. Or if y'all want to wait to see what happens with the city of San Antonio and pending litigation, or we address this, you know, at a different time. That's, you know, but I wanted to see where y'all were on this topic before I even ventured down that road.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just thought those were additional pieces of information that would be useful to share with the community. Yes, Councilor Stevens, and I wanted to be sure Councilor Hefner and Councilor Edwards, you had an opportunity to speak as well. Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering, is there anybody that's from the Texas puppy store here? Okay. So I was just wondering. So I mean, I see both sides of this story, and you know, we travel up to Dallas to get our golden doodle. We didn't see it until we got to Dallas, and then we learned. And of course, we went by reviews and all that sort of stuff. There's two sides to this argument, but it kind of also comes down to me as to the role of government, and should we be picking and choosing winners and losers? Is that the role of me as a council member, to pick which businesses should be winners and which ones should be losers? And then also it comes down to the concern of, as a business owner as well, like the city does not regulate any goods, commodities, products that I sell. They don't, the sourcing of the goods, the city does not regulate it at all. They can't tell me, oh, you can buy these shears from Japan, but you can't buy them from China because Japan pays higher wages. So I have a lot of concerns with us coming forthright and putting without some very meticulous, careful thinking. In addition to the factor that I'm sure if we pass something in the form like how I see it, I think it's unquestionable that we'll face litigation for it. I mean, and if I was the business owner of Petland, I would make sure that Leon Valley faced litigation for passing something that's kind of so overburdensome. That being said, I did, there's this attachment that was in one of the emails that we got, and then it's also in the orange folder that they gave us. And I think this is a good place to start, over in the green, where we start really, but again, I think it needs to be done meticulously, carefully, very thoughtfully, maybe with the ownership of these pet stores combined with some animal advocates from the community to find some common sense, some realistic solutions to where we avoid like the inbreeding and we avoid because the problems isn't that they're selling puppies at a storefront. The problem is where they're sourcing, there's concerns regarding the sourcing of goods. So if we can make sure that there's transparency and we make sure that the stores, for example, provide a documentation, whatever type of documentation it might be, proving that this puppy is from wherever it's from and that it's USDA licensed kennel and that it meets all these certain criteria. I see that as much more realistic than just blatantly passing a regulation that's going to automatically shut down like two businesses, and it's a difficult situation because, I feel kind of like similar to the red light cameras where we come out and say, oh, the red light cameras for sure decrease crashes. And then if you look at the numbers from TxDOT, I feel like this is also a little bit of misinformation. And so there may be a little bit of misinformation given to the community regarding the sourcing of puppies. And whereas I have no doubts that there are bad places that breed puppies and that we can probably identify a lot of examples of those, that doesn't mean that every business that sells animals does that. So that's where I would start at.
Thank you. Councilor Edwards.
Well, probably a lot of you know me and realize that my wife and I love dogs, and I still have 2 boxers, and they were both rescues. So to me, I think rescuing is a great way to go, but I don't think that I can tell everybody what to do. I've had a great experience with that, rescuing these boxers and other dogs. But I agree that we just need to look into it very carefully and try to assure that the puppies that come through our community are well cared for and they're healthy. As you say, there's a process, I guess a guarantee on the puppies, things like that, and that they get adequate veterinary care. So that's the way I look at it.
Okay, very good, thank you. Councilor Hefner.
I've said this before and I'll say it again. This is a classic example of a solution looking for a problem. San Antonio passed this ordinance. Valley seen a significant uptick as we are now the only place locally that someone can legally sell an animal outside of what San Antonio has passed. I don't think that's been the case, right? There's a Latin term called ceteris paribus. It means all else equal. Since October, when San Antonio made this change to their ordinances, have we seen any material change in the pet landscape, the pet business, the black market of pets in Leon Valley? Those that which this body would be able to pass an ordinance and regulate? I'm not seeing anyone say yes. So to me, this is a solution that's kind of the tail wagging the dog and is not necessary. If we felt there was a need for this, then, is it this body's place to determine how Petland or another business must perform their business and say that you must source your pets from USDA licensed breeders? Now, I had the opportunity in my career to work with the USDA. I worked on a program called Carpool, which is the certification and licensing program for live dogs. In working with that program, there are some pretty rigid standards that have to be adhered to with the USDA. In this presentation, I see this statement that says state and USDA standards are below San Antonio standards. To Mr. Stevens' point, I think that's a misleading statement. I think you could read that exact same statement and it would say the exact same thing if you phrased it, that San Antonio passed a much more stringent and much more burdensome regulation than what our state and federal governments have determined is necessary. And this is the cabinet level national agency that is charged with agriculture and animals. To me, I don't see that this is an issue that this body really needs to take action on until somebody can provide evidence or data that this is a real problem in our city. And after we've spent 45 minutes talking about it, I would move that we move on.
Okay. Thank you, I appreciate that. Again, back in October, and when they passed it, I did get a call from one of the San Antonio lawyers asking me, Mayor, do you want to put this on your agenda for discussion of that? And I said, no, because I haven't heard from it. You know, again, I'm not going to respond to something. But when I had 2 or 3 citizens ask me to put, you know, to look at it, I feel compelled. And that's what I'm saying. This is a dialogue. But I you know, I respect, you know, listening to both sides. And, but we need to do something that's right for our community. And it does concern me that we would be shutting down 2 businesses, you know, in the process here. But anyway, so it's up to the council. Again, Ms. Caldera said, do I want to attach, I mean, do we want to actually look at the ordinance in order to pass it? I said, no, just to give direction from the council. So that's the purpose of this agenda item this evening. And I appreciate the honesty and the openness. And yes, we do need to move on. We have a lot left on the agenda as well. Mr. Stevens, what did you want to add?
So I would encourage members of the Leon Valley community, if there is a problem with Petland or the Texas Puppy Store that you can identify and give us evidence of, please send it our way. In the meantime, I would move that we table this agenda item indefinitely.
Right, we have a motion by Mr. Councilor Stevens and a second by Councilor Hefner to table 4.8 indefinitely. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion does carry. Okay, thank you all very much for the discussion. Moving then back up to 4.4, presentation and direction on options for the 4th of July event. We have Maribel Mendoza here this evening to present. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Council. Thank you. So the purpose of the presentation is to discuss and see direction from City Council on options for our 4th of July event this year. So the theme, this was a theme we had last year, but again, unfortunately, due to the current situation we're in, we were not able to celebrate the 4th of July, so I kept the same theme for this year. Celebrate the red, white, and blue, celebrate the colors of America. And this is for our parade theme. Our parade route, we do the same, so we go from the UPS parking lot from Everett and then to Toss and towards our Harlem Cedar Ring area. So some of our possible options, so option 1 would be Sunday, July 4th. Parade would begin at 7:30 p.m. and fireworks begin at 9:15. So the fiscal impact for this option is estimated to be around $20,700. This would include your barricades, cones, and message boards, of course, to let our community know about the road closures, to include postcards to each resident, local advertisement, and the parade banner we use for the parade walkers that evening. Fireworks, as you see, we have a credit from last year, bless you, credit from last year, and we would only be giving the remaining balance due this year. Minimal overtime. We do have a dispatcher fee to make sure we keep the channels open for our first responders in case other issues arise. And then portable restrooms only at the start of the parade. So I know this was one of our opportunities, not last year, but the year before, to make sure we had enough restrooms for the parade walkers there. This is our possible option 2. So everything remains the same, plus food trucks. So the food trucks will begin from 6:30 all the way till 9:30, and that's the end of the fireworks, and this would be held on the River Lucas Park grounds. The fiscal impact for this option is estimated close to $50,000, and everything is the same. There are some additions, so you'll see there, food trucks, no fee, so we wouldn't request a fee for them, but we would request application to make sure that they have all of their permits that they need. ATMs, again, that was another opportunity for previous 4th of July that we had. Overtime did increase, and dispatchers stayed the same. And then the logistics of our park grounds. So we would need portable restrooms there on the park grounds, sanitizing stations, fencing, light towers and generators for the light towers and anything that possibly the food trucks would need. So this is the fence layout for option 2, which is the same as we've had previous years. That's just an example of the food trucks. Obviously the spacing might not be exactly to scale. And then this is the clear bag policy. So after discussing with our acting city manager, Ms. Caldera, and police chief, we suggest the policy for the security and safety of the community, but it's completely up to city council and what they decide to do. So option 3, a combination of any of the above or any other option altogether that the city council decides on. A couple of next steps. So staff receives direction from city council selecting a 4th of July option. Staff receives direction from city council selecting the grand marshal for the parade, and staff receives direction on a potential rain date. And I'll continue to give monthly updates once we figure out the options and the plan. And I stand for questions.
Very good. We're moving it to the night.
Yes,
For
so
the first time. We've never had a night parade or kind of a dusk parade.
yes, so we again, after discussing with Ms. Caldera, we know we had a huge gap. So typically it's the 5K run hosted by the Leon Valley Historical Society. They did say they were going to have their run this year, but it would be in the morning. They want to stick to the morning because it's a lot cooler, of course, because we're in midsummer. So then we were trying to remove that big gap. So if we would have a parade in the morning, and then possibly fireworks in the evening, we have like a dead space between the whole day unless we decide to do, or city council decides to do something else, which is why I made the options in the evening, because it just kind of made sense as far as schedule-wise to have our parade, and then from the parade, we still have the viewers from the parade come see the fireworks right after. So we wouldn't skip a beat.
Okay, very good. Well, I've looked at both of those options, and I feel like we're not out of COVID yet. I mean, and I'm concerned about a spreading event. So I would definitely want to choose the lesser of the two, which is option 1. And I don't really know, you don't have any, so the parade lasts for an hour and a half?
Depends on how many applications we see. So this is usually what we, on a pre-COVID, it lasts about an hour and a half. We have about maybe 50 to 55 participants. It could be definitely less, which then our parade wouldn't last an hour and a half. But I'm just going based on old numbers and our.
Right, but there's no fencing in this one. So
Correct.
people would just go over and they put down their blanket and they look at and they bring their own food or water or whatever, right? Because no food trucks. So I don't know, that's me, and I mean, if the council decides on option 2, then I would recommend that if the positivity rate was X number or above, then we cancel it. I mean, I think we just have to still be really careful. We're doing a great job as a community. The positivity rate actually went down this week to 2.2% from 2.4, but I think people are getting vaccinated and they're wearing their mask and social distancing. But that's where I'm coming down on that. And as far as the Grand Marshal, because Maribel had asked me, and I said, well, let's just bring it to the entire council. But I had listed like the guy Coyote, the Spurs Coyote or Spurs player, if anybody has any connections, which I don't have. And then of course the 4th of July is always conducive for politicians. So we have plenty of politicians that represent us, from Commissioner Rodriguez to Judge Wolf to Representative Lopez to Representative Trey Martinez Fisher. But again, if anybody else has some other ideas, we've had the KSAT 12 co-host that have been grand marshals in the past.
Yes, ma'am.
We've had Pedro Escobar, and maybe there was one other person, a local vet, that were parade marshals a couple of years ago. So, but anyway, I'm certainly open for that. As far as a rain date, I would say just the following Saturday, or, you know, if it's raining, I don't know. Or just cancel it, I
Well,
don't
the
know.
rain date really applies to option 2, not
Oh,
option
okay, gotcha.
1, because, well, I'm sorry, option 1, not option 2, because option 2 is like fencing and all
Yeah,
of those things, and
exactly.
so the deposits and all of that, I mean, that changes things a little bit, but we can move option 1, and the reason that I provided option 1 was to give, everybody complains about the fence, like, not everybody, but we do have some residents that wish that it was that hometown 4th of July event we used to have prior to the gate and the security, and so I thought that option 1 would kind of test those waters a little bit and allow the community to go back to that. You can just take your blanket in the park.
I couldn't agree more. But again, I'm open to hearing from my colleagues and hearing from our citizens. But anyway, I'm just glad that we're trying to slowly ease back into normalcy, but we're still not there yet, I think. So Counselor Bradshaw and then Counselor Edwards.
So I'm gonna make a confession here.
Okay?
I'm one of those people who complain about the fences.
Okay.
I don't like it. I don't like the feel of it, the funneling of everybody. You know, we're talking about COVID, you know, that's one of the concerns, but then you're gonna make, if we were to do that, make everybody pass through the same gate, basically. But, you know, Mayor, we just got through Easter weekend, and I went through I went to the park, and I went to a couple parks, and it was absolutely packed with people, lots of people gathering. I know they weren't all the same family, no masks, and our COVID rate went down. So my expectation is that it's gonna continue to go down. Of course, could be wrong, and if something happens, we'll obviously have to take that into account. But I would like a combination of these two. I like the idea of the later parade, so that you don't have that big gap from the morning till, okay, come back later. You know, some people will do that, but I think if people outside the community come, they could come and watch the parade and then go right into the park. And I think if we had it open, had some food trucks there, I liked the previous year before COVID when we had the music come, the bands come. I think that's really good for people. And then just allow people to bring in chairs and blankets and all of that stuff. I think it would be very good. You know, obviously there is still concerns. If there's concerns about COVID, the people that are concerned can stay away from other people or just decide not to come. But that would be my proposal. And we would say it would cost more than the first option, but if we don't do the fencing, that would at least save some money.
So I will make a comment about this, because we had a lot of discussion about the fencing situation. If something were to have happened in the park, after we have had fencing and all of a sudden we don't have fencing, the city could be held liable because we are ready-made, and we've had this discussion with the previous attorney in the past. We've already acknowledged that there is a safety concern once we started erecting the fence. And so if there was a mass shooting or something where you're not wanting people, you're not checking anybody, you could be held liable at that point. And that was brought up 2 years ago when we talked about removing the fencing. So,
When was the first year we had fencing?
2017.
17? Okay, so we started this at 12, 13, 14, 15,
Oh, we've been
16,
doing,
without a fence, and we
Yeah,
had
we've been
10,000
doing-
people.
And we've
Yeah.
been doing, we've been doing,
Mhm.
and so what we were told by the attorney at the time,
Mhm.
when we discussed removing the fence after we had the fence, because this topic
Okay.
has come up before, that we've now acknowledged that there's a possibility that something could go wrong. And now if something does go wrong and you don't have a fence option there, we could, I just want to make y'all aware, I
Okay,
mean, it's not
all
mine.
right, that sounds good. I understand. Thank you for those comments. Did you have something else to add to
I
that?
just wanted to say, as a gun enthusiast, chain link fences don't stop bullets. So it's just not, it's just a silly thing. It's really silly to think that a chain link fence is gonna stop any kind of event. I mean, obviously that would be the horrible, horrible thing if it happened, but I'm sure I could find things online.
Okay.
Actually, I think there's a statistic that 90-something% of mass shootings happen in gun-free zones. So it just doesn't work.
Okay. Counselor Edwards?
Just a question first, was there gonna be any social distancing built into any of these plans?
No.
Is anybody concerned about that?
And that's y'all's option. So option one is a smaller event. We're not planning entertainment, we're too late in the game for real entertainment and, but, you know, option one was the idea of not really advertising the event, it's community-based only. We were really just gonna do the parade participants, the people in the surrounding area, and then move into the park. This isn't a monetary generator for the city, it's just a quality of life event we put on. But no, there's not gonna be anybody there mandating masks, nobody there mandating sanitizer, nobody there mandating social distancing.
Although we can encourage that.
I mean, you can put
Yeah.
up some signs if we, you know, but we're not gonna have people regulating any of it.
All right, yes.
I guess I'd be, probably in favor of, the first option, but the food trucks is, I thought were kind of a nice touch. I don't know if there's a way to make that available.
Completely up to y'all, whatever you want.
Maybe not have 5. If it's a community event, maybe have 1 or 2. Okay, thank you. Counselor Hefner?
Yeah, thank you. I think that the notion of fences, I mean, I'm just gonna speak from my position as a dad, right? The last few years, I've wanted to take my kids to the July event. We go down there and there's a big fence, and I've already got a cooler with lunches prepared, with our own drinks. Can't bring a cooler in, and all of a sudden, all this work that I've put in to letting my kids come and do this fun event, now my only option is to let all that stuff sit in the car and go to waste and go spend a bunch of money at a food truck. I get it. Food trucks are there to make money, want to be business friendly. I'm happy to invite them. And I think that, you know, people who want to eat at the food trucks can eat at the food trucks. Me as a dad, when I've got 3 small kids and the cheapest you're going to eat at a food truck is about $10, right? That makes for an expensive day. And if you want to go to the park all day, like I look at our park as this is a public park. We should not be restricting access to the public park just because we want these food trucks to have a monopoly or captive audience for the day. They can make the choice whether they attend or not if they think it's a profitable venture for them. We're not charging them a fee to do so. It looks like based on the map, we're planning on having the food trucks spread out across the back end of the field by the larger playground and by the pavilion. It sounds like a great place for me to set up my kids' lemonade stand. I love that, right? But I want to ask one question, because I noticed on both option 1 and option 2, so I just want to clarify. There's this 5,500 for barricades. Is that barricades for the parade?
The parade.
That's not the fencing.
That's not the
separate.
fencing,
Okay.
that's separate.
You know, I'll echo Mr. Bradshaw's point. I'm not worried about a mass shooting, to be honest. How many mass shootings have we had in Leon Valley in the last 20 years? Anybody? No? Okay. Could it happen? Sure. Would it be tragic? Absolutely. I'm not worried about it. I'm not gonna tell families that they shouldn't take their kids to the park for the 4th of July to celebrate our nation's independence. I think we can do it, you know, for option 1 plus the food trucks. I don't know what the variable is between option 1, where we have 3 portable restrooms for $300. That's just at the start of the parade, I'm assuming?
Correct. Yes, sir.
So that doesn't include any portable restrooms, any additional restrooms at the park itself?
Correct. We can make that change if need be.
Well, we do have restrooms.
Right, that's true.
But not enough to support.
If we would have the.
There might be a line.
But I think the idea you were saying is that option 1 was more of a community, option 2 was,
Correct.
come on,
Yeah.
Bear County, come on in, you know?
Essentially, yes, ma'am.
That
I
kind
mean,
of
is there any difference in that? The advertising appears to be the same. Postcards appear to be the same. You know, communicating out to local media, I don't think we're gonna be checking addresses or driver's licenses
Right.
at the parking lot, right? So it'll be whoever decides to show up. I hear Mr. Edwards' point around, you know, are we concerned about social distancing? I think just as we had the discussion around our basketball courts and around our athletic fields and the other amenities in our city, we can post a sign. We can let people know, play at your own risk, enjoy this wonderful 4th of July event at your own risk, and adults can make that decision.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Yes, Councilor Orozco and then Councilor Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor. Crystal, refresh my memory, when we had the fence, were we being charged to go in?
No, never
So
been charged.
there's no reason to have a fence and
We did the fencing for security, one was for security reasons, two was, the food truck vendors didn't wanna participate unless we could promise them that they were gonna be the sole source. Food trucks, like, they've become their own industry. We're proposing 4 in this. We don't know if we're gonna be able to get 4 food trucks, to be perfectly honest with you. That's why we're not having them pay a fee to be there. Because we have to guarantee them so many entries, and then some don't want us to have people bring in food, and, I mean, there's a lot of things. So, when we provided the option 2 portion of it, it was no fee for the food trucks, and normally we would charge like $300 for the food trucks to even be there, then they had to pay their health inspection, and so there is some logistics, getting the food trucks in the park safely and out of the park, you know, in the dark can become problematic. We would, you know, we have to make sure we have lighting towers there, and, you know, there's just certain things you have to provide in the evening when you have additional amenities there, but it, I mean, definitely can be done. But that's why we had the fencing, was to provide security and to prevent people, we would stop people from coming in if they had an ice chest or food or water that they were bringing into the event.
that's because y'all had a bunch of booths that
There
were
was a lot of
selling food and
booths.
stuff.
There was a lot of
We're gonna
food
have the
booths.
same thing this year?
No, we're gonna have 4 food trucks, no rides, no entertainment, just the fireworks and the food trucks.
Okay, and I can see, Councilman Hefner, about bringing the food. I'm gonna be walking 6 blocks, and the last thing I wanna do is carry food and drink. So I would love the food trucks, but also be allowed for the counselor to bring in his family with food. And that's fine. I would love the food trucks. And the fence, I don't think it should be there at all.
And then if y'all know any food trucks, people that wanna participate, please let us know, cause
We may not be able to get.
So there's a San Antonio Food Truck Association that I actually contacted for our soapbox derby.
Okay.
And the first question they asked me was, how many people are we expecting? And when I said roughly maybe about 200 to 300, they were very hesitant. And they said, is that exact amount? Well, no, sir, this is actually our first event this year, and they were all very hesitant. And I had to, and they actually canceled on me a couple of days before because they weren't ready to spend that amount on food if they weren't gonna get that revenue back.
But have you contacted them for the 4th of July?
And yes, I have.
Okay.
I'm, the same question is, how many people are you expecting?
Okay.
But I don't have that answer because I don't know my options just yet. So if we are gonna allow food trucks, you know, how many are we gonna do? Where are we gonna have it? Time frame, so I can let them know. They would like the logistic details of the event. But I haven't had anyone confirm with me just yet.
Right, okay. Now, Councilor Stevens, you haven't had a chance to weigh in, so let's hear from you.
So, so regarding the food trucks, I think I can get some people to, like, I think we have enough local businesses here that would even do it. I would say if there's, I understand the concerns regarding coming in and out or whatever, but just say if you come, you have to be here at 6:30 and you have to stay through 9:30, and you can either make the money or not. But generally, we have like probably over 10,000 people at these events, right? If not.
Well, I mean.
Well, that's the countywide.
Right, so you still include the festival part of it, so the rides, the entertainment part, more food vendors.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a
other
lot
vendors
more.
there, like, we're not having it
Well,
close to what
I
we-
understand that, but there's habitual behaviors that people do on holidays, and
They're gonna
just
be-
because we don't promote it doesn't mean people will
No,
not.
I mean, we would rent buses and bus people in
Correct.
from the
Definitely.
bowling alley. I mean,
Yeah.
people were parking as far as Bandera Road Bowl. We don't have the time frame to do all of that
Okay.
this year. And
It's
so,
streamlined.
People will just either be hiking it over, and we may get 10,000 people that show up for this event because it's, you know, local, inner city, and we are shooting off fireworks, and they can bring their own food and drink, and, you know, so we may have a lot of people show up just by word of mouth. But we don't know that. I can't make promises to the food truck vendors that we're gonna have X amount of
Right,
people.
so I wouldn't make any promises to the food truck vendors, but I would say traditionally, we have had these. The other thing that I did, so I agree with the whole fence thing. I say let people bring their own food, especially if we don't know if food trucks will or won't be there. There's no reason to have a fence. You know, I feel like people generally with, you know, we're in Texas, I mean, mass shooters, we can park a dump truck on the roads that are beside the two places and it'd be fine. But I am concerned, I can't remember the last July 4th event I was to, and there was no music. So have y'all even considered like a DJ?
Well, we can look into
I can-
DJ.
I can definitely do that.
The thought during the parade route, normally there's a band that participates in the parade, like somebody's playing music in the middle of the parade, either it's a band or
John Marshall High School band.
John Marshall High School, somebody's playing in the parade park. We've always had entertainment to some degree, whether it's local entertainment or something of that nature, participate in our event. The concern this time is, one, is short notice. Two, if we do have a rain date, there is no such thing as a rain date for entertainment. So if it gets rained out, you're done, because if you pay a deposit down for the 4th and you want a rain date for the following weekend, they're not gonna take up 2 weekends just because you have a rain date.
That's right.
Right.
So, those are just some of the concerns with the entertainment, and we are kind of short notice, but we always do. I mean, we've had we wanted to do Spasmatics last year, the year before.
The year before, and that's what draws people there, is the entertainment too.
Right, well, I would say, you know, we aren't trying to get like DJ Khalid over in Leon Valley or anything, just like a DJ that's a reasonable cost.
You could,
I mean, there's a lot of DJs in San Antonio, for sure. I guess that kind of sums up my thoughts. I think we should do the parade. I think right now there's too many vaccines, not enough people that want them in Bexar County. So we're like 2.5 months out from July 4th, and so there's anybody that wants to get a full series of vaccinations before July 4th can have that done and be completely immunized. There comes a point when, you know, the pandemic is gonna have to kind of settle and we'll have to get boosters and whatever for the vaccines, but there's no reason to continue with like ridiculous, I'm sorry, I'm letting in a little my opinion, but we need to start continuing life a little bit like normal, and letting people go back out and experience life with their families and July 4th and stuff like that. So even the president had commented on how July 4th was freeing for the whole country, so.
Okay, yes. Counselor Hefner, and I believe Counselor, Counselor Bradshaw, you want to hear from the citizens first? Or did you want to go ahead? Go ahead.
Just a quick
Go ahead.
comment. So, you know, I understand this is the first time we're doing a parade late at night, and fireworks at night.
Well, it'll still be dusk. the way we go.
I mean, sunset's like, what, 7:30 or 8 o'clock or something. So I have no problem letting food trucks be there all day. If that's a concern and they want more traffic, I was at the park this past weekend on Sunday, which this would be on a Sunday, and there were probably, in the space of 2 hours that we were there were probably 3,000 or 4,000 people there. It was packed. There were parties, there were birthdays, there were tents, there were softball games going on, there were basketball games going on. People were living life. And I think of a Sunday, people are gonna go to church Sunday morning and they're gonna go to the park in the afternoon if they wanna be out in the nice weather. Let's assume it doesn't rain. So I say let the food trucks be there starting at noon. Start the culture, start the environment of, hey, we're gonna celebrate. Have the advertising up, say, hey, we're gonna have a parade at 7:30, kind of build that throughout the day. We're gonna have fireworks at the end of the day. You know, we've also got this whole thing we talked about a couple of weeks ago around movies in the park. Throw up a movie in the park at 9:30. Why not, right? Let's capture that opportunity for our citizens. The other thing I would say is if we let the food trucks be there all day, I see no reason why, you know, we can't let citizens do the same exact thing on the 4th of July that we let them do every other day of the year. So, you know, when this beer league softball team is playing at our park and they're rolling around with their coolers full of beer, so be it. It's 4th of July, it's independence, it's kind of what it's about.
Okay.
That's my opinion. Love to hear from the gallery.
Okay. Mr. Bradshaw, did you want to yield to the citizens? Okay, Mr. Mata, you've had your hand up, but I just wanted to make sure that I had fingers coming up back
Well,
here.
I thought we made some changes, right, where citizens would be able to speak interspersed with you guys speaking.
Sure.
Okay, all right.
Sure.
I've had my
Well,
hand up for
they-
about 20 minutes.
Well, they've had their fingers up, so you can't see it over here, but they've got their
My
fingers
hand has
popping
been
up.
up for about
so.
20 minutes, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I
sorry
wanted to
about
address this issue with the fencing. I think it kind of coincides with the previous police chief, who has kind of got us used to corralling citizens into council meetings. You know, where we have to go through security checks here. I don't think that was ever a normal thing for city council meetings here in Leon Valley. I experienced something similar on Sunday, where there was a supposed public meeting, and it was fenced off, and the previous or fired police chief was there trying to regulate people coming in. So the idea of fencing and regulating people coming in is a relic of the past. I think we need to move forward, put that behind us. Also, the idea of utilizing a high school band, Marshall, I don't see that happening. I've done a little bit of teaching at Marshall for the head band director, teaching his son some lessons and others. I think they maybe have 7% of kids back. They're not ready to perform, really. I just don't see that happening.
I just wanted to make a correction. We've never had John Marshall at any of our 4th of July parade. Never. I don't think so.
It's been a while.
Because they're not there. They're all dispersed.
I think the last time was probably late 80s.
Okay, late 80s. Okay, there you go.
I think
Okay,
my sister was in band there.
Yeah, they've never.
And it is hard to put together a group, but especially now when kids have not been back.
Right.
So, I mean, we could get creative with entertainment and alternatives to that, so.
Well, my neighbor has a band.
Yeah, we could
Albert
do local
you know, I
talent
mean, we
and
could get them
audition
over
there.
there. Yeah,
And put together playlists of,
Yeah.
patriotic music or whatever,
yeah.
oldies, but, anyways, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, and I'm sorry, Mr. Mott, I didn't mean to ignore you back there.
Just
But I
really
sure-
quickly on the we don't have a stage, like, we
Oh,
usually,
yeah.
like, I mean, just FYI, that wasn't incorporated in any of these because we weren't looking at entertainment.
Gotcha.
I can have a DJ there, we can set up something for them there. I don't know
Trailer.
if we
Okay.
could get a stage, so.
A trailer,
Very good.
Trailer?
DJ, flatbed trailer, I got one.
Okay, well,
Okay.
we'll take you up on your trailer and we'll get the DJ.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Martinez?
Council, Mayor,
Yes.
I support option 1. I'd like to see the fence removed. That was, to me, that was a bad idea from the beginning. I didn't support it from the beginning. As for COVID, about 3 weeks ago, maybe a little bit longer, there was a concert at Cowboys. The article I read, it was jam-packed, and we did not see a spike in COVID cases. So, God willing, that we over the hump, and I think we can have a very successful 4th of July. You know, we're known for this, for around San Antonio, as having this big, beautiful 4th of July fireworks show. People, I've heard people are parked on Bandera and Bowling Alley and all the streets around us. If we said there's 5,000 people in the park, there's probably 10,000 people in the surrounding areas watching it. So that's another thing we need to do to foster our city. Let's do stuff to bring stuff in, and hopefully they'll get hungry and they'll stop at one of our restaurants. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Morris, did you have your hand up? Did you want to say something? I didn't want to preclude you from weighing in on this as well. Because Public Works is a big part of the 4th of July.
The restroom issue.
Okay.
And when you get, more than what we had like on Packed Easter weekend, we really need porta potties.
Okay.
Because you'll not only get lines, but you get backed up toilets. And if you
Okay.
have to wait for one of my Public Works crew members who's busy getting trash somewhere, to have to actually come and unstop a toilet, line gets backed up, it gets pretty bad.
Okay. So porta potties.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll add that to the list. All right. Anyone else? Oh, yes, Chief. Gonzalez, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mayor.
I'm glad you're here. Yes, sir.
I'm listening.
Uh-huh. What do you say?
10,000 people, that's great.
Uh-huh.
That's gonna mean more staff for me because of the parking issues that are gonna come up. The drunken sailors maybe, Marines, I don't know, whatever. So I'm gonna have more staff.
Okay.
So that overtime budget's gonna go up. Just
To
FYI.
about what, how much is that? Maybe at the next meeting, can you come back and kind
Well,
of
if we're gonna be
incorporate?
expecting 10,000 people, it's gonna be everybody that I have
Yeah.
available.
Okay. So that figure is going to double, triple, what?
I'll have to get
Okay,
with-
overtime 16.5 is what it says there.
I have to calculate the salary.
All right.
And that was the other reason I was trying to keep the time block, like, everything at one time. So I wasn't having split shifts.
Right.
And so that was the other reason I told Maribel to keep, the parade and the fireworks all at one time. And to Mr. Hefner's point, he wanted to do the food trucks beginning at noon. The only reason I wouldn't recommend it is because of that, and people there, guiding them in the park, making sure they're set up, electricity, having a health inspector there. So you just more staff is involved early on during the day.
Okay. All right, so more staff, more porta potties, and what would you say, Counselor?
I'm just curious, how many staff do we have at the park on a regular Saturday or Sunday?
We normally have
Just Public Works.
just 2 on a Saturday or Sunday, but for 4th of July, it's all hands on deck. We have mostly exempt staff there, and I'm there from 6 a.m. till the show is over, usually about 1 in the morning. So we're there all day because we don't get paid overtime. So we're there parking cars, we're doing all the extra, all the exempt staff is doing, all the department heads are required to be there all day. Because we're exempt staff, we're there the following day at 6 a.m. to pick up trash in the park because we're exempt. And so it becomes a 2-day affair for all of us. But it's the police, fire, because you have to bring in extra fire shifts because fire has to be stationed there and there. You have to have Public Works, a larger crew, not only cleaning trash, lights go out, they need electricity, especially if you're gonna have a DJ there. There are other intricacies that happen when you start expanding the 4th. And so I think in years past, our overtime has been about $30,000. So you're probably gonna get pretty close to that. If y'all are good with that, we're good with it. We sign up when we sign up for Leon Valley to be here July 4th, so.
Okay, but what do we have budgeted? Because usually we will get we'll get,
65?
and does that include a contribution from the EDCD? Yeah, usually we'll
We
get a
didn't do any of the
yeah,
sponsors this
exactly.
year.
So, okay, yes,
So
sir. Go ahead.
just checking, we've got 65,000 budgeted. The most expensive of these 2 options, if we did all the things that were listed, is 49.5. So, I think we've kind of cherry picked a couple of elements out of each option. We've added something that wasn't in either option, which was a DJ and entertainment. So I think,
I think fencing is how much, 8,000 or something like that? What was the fencing? You have it
that doesn't
18,000.
say specifically.
I'm sorry, it's a package together with the company or the estimates I got, but I can get an individual pricing just for fencing. It's just 18,000 included.
Oh, all of that.
All of
I
it,
see.
about
Gotcha.
10 portable restrooms,
Okay.
a couple of
Gotcha.
sanitizing stations, fencing, light towers, and generators. Just a
Okay.
combination of all.
All right. Yes, Mr. Roscoe.
Thank you, Mary. Chief, does that include your reserve officers as well?
Everybody that signs up with Leon Valley PD will be working.
And we're also working with an agreement with San Antonio Police Department.
Okay, that is, our officers will go work at their events for $50 an hour. If I brought them over, they would expect more than $50 an hour.
Okay.
should pay you the same.
Well, and are they gonna have their Woodlawn Lake,
They're gonna have.
you know, event as well?
They're gonna have their events
Yeah.
that they'll be at.
Mhm. Right. Okay, so, yes, Mr. Miller, would like to hear from you, but I was thinking we've got a lot of input. Maybe we could follow up on the next agenda, you know, and kind of come back.
So, I mean, what I have in just, I mean, nods or shakes is no gate, we're gonna do the parade in the evening, some form of DJ or entertainment, and food trucks will be on that backside of the park area, so, like.
And a flatbed trailer from
But we
Council
probably have one
Stevens.
at Public Works,
Okay.
and we would have a small stage, I think, somewhere.
I believe so, community center.
Yeah, I think we have a small.
Well, we used to have it at the community center, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think, I
Okay.
don't think we need to like overdo the music, but it's a low cost compared to, yeah.
Okay, but
something rather-
coolers are allowed, people can bring their own
Okay.
food and
so we'll do
blanket.
an updated presentation
Okay.
for the next council meeting.
Okay,
Incorporate
sounds good. We do have Mr. Miller that would like to add something to the discussion, and then if there's no one else, then we'll move to the next agenda item.
Jack Miller, Counterfield. So, police chief, it doesn't surprise me that the police are up here staring at and begging for the city's teat. When it comes to overtime, that's MO for the police. Give us money, give us money, give us money. That's not a complex issue. You have a police department, you have sworn officers. Not one officer needs to be working over in San Antonio or Bexar County or anyone else on July 4th. They're Leon Valley police officers. They need to be here. The reservists, they need to be here. Reservists shouldn't be working any off-duty jobs anyway. They're just prohibited by law unless they meet certain requirements. And if they do that, then they need to be here in Leon Valley. And if they don't want to be, then they go work somewhere else, wherever they would be working. Overtime for police, I mean, it's very simple. You have a police department, you bring officers out, you assess the crowd. And what we don't want is we don't want 10 Leon Valley police officers getting time and a half doing nothing and not needing to be there all day long. So if 10,000 people show up, then we have all the officers there. And if only 200 show up, then, you know, somebody like the chief should be there monitoring that constantly and either sending people home or what have you. And that's all I have to say about the police. Have police there, but we don't need a bunch of police there twiddling their thumb, because idle hands are the devil's workshop. And we don't need repeats of things that have happened in the past when police don't have anything better else to do. Former Chief Savaggio testified that he had 8 officers who monitor, log, library, our social activities, our YouTube channels, our Facebook, this, that, and the other. I don't know if that is still ongoing. Perhaps you guys should find out from the chief if that is still going. Assign those officers to July 4th, just for that day, and then they can go back to monitoring our YouTube channels and stuff like that. Last but not least, mass shootings. It troubles me to hear anyone say that they are not concerned with a mass shooting. You need to be concerned with a mass shooting. I was trespassed from this city for safety reasons for over almost 3 years, and not one person on this council spoke up and said nothing because you were so concerned with me. And to sit there and say that you're not concerned with mass shootings when it's happening every other day, mistake. Please be concerned about it. I'm not getting on to you. Whatever it means to you to ensure your own personal safety, please do it. But don't say we're not going to care about mass shootings. They are happening. They are real. They may never happen in Leon Valley, but they are a real risk. Last but not least, please, 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 I don't know the answer to this, but do not bar licensed gun holders from your event on July 4th. We will carry concealed most likely, and we'll be your best friends along with your police if a problem were to come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Okay. I am looking at the time. It's 9:35, and we have got a boatload of stuff to do, and so I'd like to get input from my colleagues as to what you'd like to take and postpone. Yes, Councilor Hefner?
Sorry, Mayor, the one thing that we didn't address was the Grand Marshal.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'd like to make a recommendation, maybe it's a little outside the box. I'd like to let the department heads nominate someone from their department, and then maybe the city manager can pick somebody that names the employee of the year or something. I don't know, it'd be a nice honor, I think, for our staff. Outside the box maybe doesn't work. Shoot me down if you like.
No, I mean, it's always been at the elected official level that y'all select a grand marshal. I don't know which way the staff will go, and I'm really scared which way they go.
Yeah, there you go, and you have to choose, yeah, I wouldn't want to put you in that position either, I really, but that's a great.
We
outside
could
of-
raffle it.
Oh,
There we go,
okay,
make it random.
okay, all right,
I don't know,
Haven't heard-
I'm not of the opinion that just because we've always done it away.
The only one I would recommend, if Mr. Brummett was in town, he came back, and it's always been part of the
well,
community.
he usually goes back to Colorado in May, and then he doesn't come back
That
until
would be
October.
a former staff person or something that I would recommend.
I mean, I could ask him, but, yeah,
But normally that's a position that the council takes.
and he's a vet, but I don't know if he'd come back, so, anyway, I think he's got a family thing. Okay, so on the marshal, grand marshal, because we gotta kind of tie this, maybe we don't have a grand marshal this year, I mean, I don't know. Okay, y'all be thinking about it, and we'll discuss it at the next council meeting. I'm sorry, Maribel, we're just putting more pressure on you.
Not a problem.
Okay, all right. So, I wanted to ask Mr. Cox, Ms. Moritz, and Mr. Messick, 5, 6, and 7 presentations. Are these time sensitive, or could we possibly move it to the next city council meeting? This, I just need to know, because if it is, then we can address it, but.
Mine is not, but there's an important update on the Marshall tank that I just wanted to tell y'all about.
Okay.
The project was supposed to start on April the 19th. When the guy started climbing up the ladder, a pair of red-tailed hawks came and attacked him.
Oh,
There's
no.
a nest on top of the building.
Oh, wow.
On top of the tank. And so we're not, because it's already nested, don't know if the eggs are hatched already and there's fledglings, or if it's still in the egg stage, but we are not allowed to remove them, period.
Okay.
It's illegal. And so the Texas Game Warden told me that we're looking at probably end of June, first part of July, depending on if it's an egg or a fledgling right now.
Okay.
But if it's an egg and they're not hatched, then you're probably looking at end of July, first part of August.
Okay.
So we're gonna fly a drone over there on Thursday. I'm gonna have somebody stand on the ladder and get the bird to attack them and fly the drone over so we can see what's in there.
Oh, how cool. Give us that, tape.
Yes.
Yes, love to see it.
But
Okay,
no,
so,
this is not
okay,
now
so
time
we'll postpone this. And then, Mr. Cox, how about yours? Is this FEMA, the grant isn't till May 10th through September, whatever, 7th is what I read. You can put that on.
Many of the schedules are, not even been approved for FEMA funding yet, we've not, Bear County's not met certain threshold.
Okay, all right, so we can postpone that. And it's always good to know where we stand financially, but we could put that on the next agenda as well?
I'm happy with finances, Mayor. If you have any questions, give me a call.
Okay, so we'll put it on for the next one, because we did go with the quarterly, so, yes. Yes, Counselor Hefner?
So, Mr. Messick, when you come back with the quarterly financial report at the next meeting, I was gonna pull from the consent agenda the quarterly investment report, specifically page 376. I'd like to take a better look at next time.
Okay, very good, thank you. I appreciate you telling us. Yes, go right ahead, Ms. Moritz.
Did y'all already approve the consent agenda?
Not yet, but I'd like to do that.
That's the only thing time pressing that we have is that CDBG authorization.
Right, okay, we will definitely take that. Okay, so, citizens to be heard, announcements, and city manager report, and consent agenda for sure. And then, I'd like to take those ordinances if we could, even if we go past 10 o'clock, would that be amenable to my colleagues? Let's get those done, and then we can just move the regular agenda for the next meeting. Would that be okay? All right, because I don't think the second reads are going to take us as long, because they're second reads. Okay, so,
I
yes.
don't know if people are available tomorrow, but do you wanna move this meeting? No, okay, shake your head.
No, yeah, no. We've all got.
I would rather, if we have to stay late tonight, I'd rather stay late than have an additional meeting.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
Well, I think moving it to the next agenda is fine, those aren't time sensitive. Okay, citizens to be heard. I know we've heard from a lot of you, but is there anyone that would like to speak to the council? I believe I have a letter, and I believe somebody else has a letter as well. So let me read, and Mr. Miller, we'll call on you in just a minute. This is from Gilda Ibarra. As a resident of Leon Valley for 39 years, I have noticed less police presence patrolling our neighborhoods. Gunshots, car racing, and people looking to break into cars are becoming the norm. In the past few years, this has changed for the worse. The fact that citizens are directed to Bexar County when calling 911 makes it more difficult and time-consuming. I hope the council and police department will take measures to make us a safer city again. Thank you for your time, Gilda Ibarra, Forest Oaks resident. Councilor Edwards, I believe I gave you, no, you've already read yours, right? And Councilor Stevens, I had given one to you as well.
So this is from Loretta Hody. A question for Mayor Riley. This isn't, I don't think there's an agenda item on this, but we're Board of or maybe there is, sorry. I'll just read it anyways. We're Board of Adjustment alternate members given the opportunity to move up. Assuming they had taken the required classes, it seems that would be the protocol as suggested in Ordinance 2018-17, Section 1.06.006, Board Appointments and Succession. It appears that Chairman Larry Prophet was guided by this ordinance when the Economic and Community Development Advisory Committee recommended that an alternate become a regular member. The answer to this question has no effect on me because I have resigned. However, there were 2 alternates standing by who would have been good choices. Did you talk to them before putting forth your personal choices? The actions taken at the meeting confused me. Loretta Hody, Leon Valley resident.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Hefner.
This is from Bob Page of Richwood, Texas. There was a question asked during this weekend's candidate forum that candidates seemed to struggle answering. It was about how they plan to attract Black businesses. The question, as I would have asked it, as a city council member, what would you do to attract minority-owned businesses to Leon Valley? The answer that would have won my vote if I had been able to vote. First, I will work with the city manager to make sure city employees are a diverse group, especially those involved in citizen and business interactions, including first responders. We'll also work with the city manager to make sure the employees get out and interact in the neighborhoods as permitted. Maybe even introduce and promote proposals that would encourage city employees to live in the city they serve. This includes such things as reimbursing moving fees and/or housing closing costs for employees who do not currently reside in Leon Valley to relocate to Leon Valley and/or offer incentives for local rental properties to give city employees rent discounts. Second, make good use of one of the council members' most powerful duties, which is to appoint members to citizen advisory boards. I would use my influence to encourage minority-owned business owners to serve on these boards. Also, Leon Valley has a very diverse collection of religions within its boundaries. I would also try to make sure each of them had an opportunity to participate on these boards. That includes those citizens that might be active in atheist and/or agnostic organizations. P.S. Mr. Hefner, thank you. Leon Valley citizens, including future citizens like myself, have noticed. Good job taking constructive criticism and the not constructive, for that matter, and listening. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in the meeting. Bob Page.
Okay, thank you. You read yours, and Councilor, okay, you've had yours. Okay, very good. And I have a hand. Go, yes, Mr. Miller. Thank you and welcome back. Oh.
This is the last citizens to be heard tonight?
No, there's another one at the very, very end, but this is the first one.
This is the first one, okay, and it's not about, it doesn't have to be about agenda.
No, no, in fact, it
General-
shouldn't be,
general
usually,
speaking
it's just
stuff.
general, yeah.
Okay. There was an incident, Mr. Mata was present filming, I think we all know about it. It was very confusing to me, I didn't understand if it was official or not. I mean, there was a police officer who was on duty there, and by all appearance, it looked like a city function, but Mata, Leon Valley resident, was being excluded. It looked very improper. I don't know all the facts of what happened there, and I'm gonna talk to the chief about it, and hopefully that'll get looked into, and that'll stop from what I take it was some type of community watch or something like that. And anyway, I just want to let you know we're watching that. And I am going to bring that to the chief's attention. It probably already has, but nevertheless, we're watching that and we'll follow up on that. What else was there? Evan Bohl, he's running for city council. I understand that hasn't changed. So Evan Bohl commented on my YouTube channel and made a comment about Mr. Stevens in relation to me announcing his charges had been dropped. And Mr. Bohl indicated that although they've been dropped, Josh Stevens is engaged in other felonious conduct. Here's the thing, we got rid of council members who engaged in mud throwing like that. We got rid of them. And we'll get rid of you too if you do it. And I haven't seen anybody up here do it, but we're watching and we're ready. If we can get rid of sitting ones, we can certainly get rid of people that are running. Please do not do that. If you're on this council, do not mudsling back. We're watching. The voters don't like, I know I'm not a voter yet, but I will be. The voters don't like mudslinging. Don't do it. Don't fall into that trap. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Oh, I'm sorry. I still got a little bit of time? I'm sorry, Mayor, for interrupting you.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I wanted to add to that, if anybody has knowledge that anybody here on council that we're interested in is involved in, I'll quote, felonious conduct, other felonious conduct, if I'm saying that right. If you have evidence of that, bring it out in the open and let's deal with it. But careful on the false allegations. I can get up here and say anything I want about you guys, whether it be true or false. But if you're running for council or you're sitting on council or you're a city staff member, you can't do it ever. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you very much. Yes. Ms. Bohl, you're next as soon as we clean the podium. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you. I just want to give my time to Evan, please.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, point of order. Our rules of form do say that a person can address the council one time, and there's a time limit. I don't know about yielding time. I think that was something that was addressed in the past, but you're the chair, so it's up to you if you want to accept it.
I will give Mr. Bohl 3 minutes. I don't know if I need to give him 6 minutes, but I think that's what you meant, is to give him 3 plus 3. Is that right?
That is correct.
Lots of minutes.
Mostly because of what I have written down is
Yeah, so
from her
just
words.
3 minutes is fine.
Well, actually, to build off of what Mr. Miller had said, the attempts to control the narrative and use whatever means they can, however insidious and disgusting, is in full swing to harass, intimidate, lie, and to entrap good, honest citizens. To start, not the least with which includes citizens harassing other citizens with the latest display when one citizen, knowing that a neighborhood watch meeting, which is a collection of that neighborhood's residents, which is a regular matter that includes police at the meeting, was occurring not within the citizen's neighborhood. The group holding their meeting were gracious enough to host the candidates running for the various positions for city council, and it was the saddest display to see just how unhinged, unstable, inflammatory for 45 straight minutes and deranged the behavior of the citizen was. It was indeed so embarrassing that it took the citizen's friend and elected official, Will Bradshaw, to come out and tell him to effectively cool his jets on the embarrassing display, which can be seen and heard on stream. We encourage all citizens that if you wish to be involved, that you start and keep an active neighborhood watch group to improve safety within your neighborhoods. But this is just the latest incident of behavior in a growing list of behaviors to intimidate the community. Following that, as mentioned by Mr. Miller, we have an elected official committing crimes, and of which is a felony, to try and trap the opponent of his good friend Benny Martinez, an attempt to create dirt to help the corrupt former councilman win his race. Using your personal business to make a political contribution in the least amount that forces an itemized report on the campaign finance reports. Unfortunately, this is just another situation of not fully understanding the laws that govern elections and being elected officials. The corruption needs to stop, but will it? Not likely. The appropriate authorities have been notified. It is a felony for a person to make a corporate contribution in an attempt to trap a person into accepting the funds in an effort to help your friend win a race. Only when this ridiculous and blatant corrupt action was exposed did Councilman Stevens, sole owner of Innovative Medical Customization LLC, try the weakest argument ever, claiming to be innocent and that he was coincidentally hacked. He attempted to dispute the intentional transaction as unauthorized and asked for the funds back, knowing those funds are currently on hold until the investigation is complete, at which time the funds will be returned to him as prescribed by law. I hold an email chain that can be requested with open records requests and happily turned over that shows the level of denial and lying this man will do to protect himself now that he has been caught red-handed. There are some citizens in this community over the last several years, including currently elected officials, who started out with harmless, benign, dismissive attitudes toward my ability to actually care for this community and actually bring solutions to their deranged rants, now evolving into insidious lies and corrupt acts towards this community and a citizen of it, harming everyone just to protect your personal agendas. We have wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars to protect corruption that we do not want in this city, where money could have gone to make projects in this community and make our city better.
Okay.
That is
Thank you
not
very
what we
much,
wish. Thank you.
Mr. Bohl, for those comments. Yes, Mr. Mata, you're next. Yes, sir.
Eric Mata, Canterfield. So it's been touched on here by a couple of speakers. Over the course of last week, there were signs off of Evers and off of Huebner announcing a community meeting of some sort at Grass Valley. Gave the address. I don't remember it off the top of my head. So I was free on Sunday at that time, and I went to go check it out. I'd heard rumors that it was some kind of forum, political forum. I wasn't sure. So I thought, try to attend, try to participate, as I have for the last 2 years. Walked up the driveway of Mrs. Seifert to investigate being able to attend and view this meeting. To see the former police chief playing kind of the role of a bouncer, a regulator, standing at the top of the driveway. And as I walked up the driveway, he rapidly approached me. I felt like he was charging me. Got right in my face within inches, telling me, "Mr. Mata, you need to leave now," in a very aggressive, hostile manner. I told him, "Are you still an active member of our police department?" To me, it was a shock to see him taking such an aggressive role in this meeting that I thought was open to the public. So anyways, yeah, it startled me and it kind of set me off. And I looked over to Sergeant Johnson and said, "Am I supposed to leave? What's going on?" And I was told also by the homeowner, Karen Seifert, that I was not wanted there, that I was not allowed to attend this meeting. So I turned around, went to the sidewalk, and I had Ms. Seifert and Mr. Dwayne Smith in my face, along with Joe Salvaggio as well. Crazy situation, and was not comfortable with that. So what I wanted to know was, a meeting like this that ended up being private, I would call it a private event, why do we have officers working on duty at an event like that? Over the course of the last 2 days, I've come to understand that our city manager, Crystal Caldera, has addressed this, and I appreciate that. I understand that the chief of police was aware that this officer was participating, but possibly not aware of the nature of this meeting. And so, again, we see, there was other officers there as well. We had the assistant fire chief Burnside as well participating. And I just want to say again, why do we have staff involving themselves in politics?
Mr. Mata,
Yeah.
thank you. I've got to keep it
So,
to 3 minutes.
so I hope you guys address this and look further into it.
Thank you.
Make sure this does not happen again.
We appreciate it. All righty, thank you. And Mr. Martinez?
Danny Martinez, Seneca.
Uh-huh.
I was at the event Sunday, and one of the things, it got ugly, but it got ugly on both sides. Mrs. Seifert and I guess one of our guests were yelling and cussing, and Mr. Mata did not utter one swear word, but to me, both parties are just as guilty for the event that happened. As for, I don't know why my opponent in this race keeps on bringing me up on accusing me of crimes or alleged crimes or associating me with that donation that he got. I had nothing to do with that. If he wants to talk ethics, why not let's talk about the $11,000 fine that he owes the state? But keep me out of it. I don't want to go negative. I don't want to be, I'm looking for positive things for the city. I'm looking for the city's future. I want to help the city grow and foster into something better for our Leon Valley. So, I don't want to get in the mud. So I don't know why my opponent keeps on bringing me up and accusing me of stuff that doesn't appear to happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anyone else in the chambers? We've already read all of the. Okay. So let's go on to agenda item number 6. We have announcements by the mayor and council. Councilor Edwards, do you have any announcements this evening?
No, just in the interest of speeding things up, no, just thank you for all coming and participating.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you, Councilor Stevens.
All ditto those comments. Go vote. Your vote counts.
Yes, sir. Councilor Petland.
Mr. Stevens took my thunder.
Okay,
I'm good to go.
very good.
I'm
Councilor
gonna pass this well.
Okay. And Councilor Bradshaw.
Real quick.
Yeah, I've got some too. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'll be real quick. Last Saturday, I was at on Bandera Road at the restaurant and eating, and all of a sudden there started to be some smoke around us, and there's something what's going on, and pretty soon Leon Valley Fire trucks are going by, and so we went outside to see what's going on, finishing it really quick, went over to Grass Valley, and saw that there was a house on fire, and a vehicle on fire, and a bunch of neighbors outside obviously watching it. But I just wanted to say thank you to the fire department. The neighbors said they got there really quickly, and the police department as well. They were there taking care of that, and first thing I asked was, did everybody get out okay? Was everybody okay? And yeah, there's my understanding is everybody was safe. So that's the number one concern, and I just want to thank you for that. And as the other counselor said, early voting is going on until Tuesday, so please go out and vote.
Okay, thank you. I just have a few announcements. I wanted to thank the League of Women Voters for conducting the candidates forum last Saturday. I thought it was an excellent presentation, hour and 20 minutes, lots of questions. Everybody got to, all the candidates got to express themselves, and so I really appreciate that. And thank you to the Helotus Echo for streaming the event, and for Mr. Martinez for providing the mics. We learned a lot. I also need to thank my neighbor John Hoyt. I saw him Sunday in the park, just on his own. He was picking up. Have y'all seen in the park? It's trashed out with little bits of plastic pieces from Easter, and he was picking those up to help the Public Works Department. So thank you, John, for that. Let's see. I did want to say that the city of San Antonio sent me an email last week. And we had just dedicated the Crystal Hills Park right there at Shadow Mist. And Councilor Sandoval's aide sent me an email saying that the city council will approve a contract to construct the Heidner Creek trailhead and connect more residents to Crystal Hills. And it's $641,108. And so they're putting a lot of money into that park and connection. And hopefully, Melinda, I wanted to thank her for submitting the MPO grant, because if we can get that MPO grant, we'll have a seamless connection to the Heather Trailhead. So thanks to the City Councilor Sandoval and her team for helping to get this trailhead together with the money from the City of San Antonio. Tree planting this Saturday at Silo Park, 50 trees donated by Tiger. I know they're looking for volunteers from 9 to 12. And tomorrow, April 21st, we were talking about vaccinations being readily available. St. John's Baptist Church, which is at the end of Evers Road, I believe it's in the morning. Is it in the morning, Crystal?
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's all
like 9 to 1 or something.
9 to 1. You can, and I know there's a form online, but anyway, if you haven't gotten your vaccine, they're providing the Moderna vaccine for free. And I guess that's it. Y'all already, I said about early voting, but I think we've heard from several of the council members to please participate in early voting. Okay. That's it from the announcement for the mayors and council. Let's move on to the city manager's report. Ms. Caldera?
So the city manager's report can be found outside and online. Y'all notice that it's changed quite a bit. We have some historical references per, the council had kind of requested that. So you're just gonna have to let me know how you like it, what you like. Some of the residents may be missing some of the other information, and so if they are, just let me know. I have it. I'll be more than happy to send it to them. For those of you that like spreadsheets, I sent you all the raw data, so you can kind of play with the raw data if that's something that you want to do. But so the city manager's report has changed a little bit, so it looks a little different. We are in stage 2 water restrictions, and I sent you all that information. And your watering days and how much you can water is located online, and Maribel's been doing social media and stuff on that. Melinda is proposing a stormwater workshop. We've had the water workshop already. She's looking at May 22nd, and so y'all can't really give me consensus at this time, but if y'all could just email me later if that date looks good for y'all.
Okay.
And then lastly, I just want to address, the Grass Valley. Just briefly, we've made some policy changes internally, so that does not happen again. If anybody's curious about that, I'll be more than happy to send you those policy changes.
Okay.
That's
very
it.
good. So contact you if they have any questions on that.
Yes.
Okay, very good. We will move then to the consent agenda, number 8. 8, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I believe, Councilor Hefner, you wanted 8.3 to be removed for the next agenda. Is that correct? So, may I have is there anyone else that would like anything else to be removed? Yes.
Mayor, on
Roxanne.
the presentations, I think in your motion you need to include those presentations also. I don't think that there was a motion.
Okay, yes. I thought usually what we do at the very end of the meeting is whatever we don't have left over, then we'll get a full motion and we'll include all of that. So we will do that. Yes, I've got a list going that we need to do a motion. So thank you for keeping us on track. Greatly appreciate that. Okay, so may I have a motion to adopt 8.1, 2, and 4?
So moved.
All right. We have a motion by Councilor Hefner and a second by Councilor Orozco to approve consent agenda 8.1, 8.2, and 8.4. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion does carry. May I have a motion to postpone 8? Well, I tell you what, we'll just add that to our list, 8.3. We're going to move to the next meeting. Would that be all right? We can include that with all of them. Okay, great, thank you. Then we move then to ordinance number 9.1. And Ms. Pasolay, if you will please read that ordinance, and we will need to vote. This is an emergency ordinance that only needs one read. So, 9.1.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Leon Valley, Texas, extending a declaration of local disaster, establishing rules regulations for the duration of disaster, restricting certain activities, repealing all previous ordinances, and providing severability of dates, causes, and providing an effective date.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief Gonzalez, if you'd like to begin, please.
Yes, ma'am.
And good evening and welcome.
GA 35,
Mhm.
the latest. We're still working under GA 34. On the next slide. Nothing has changed statewide. There's no restrictions. There's recommendations, wear masks, social distance, sanitize, all those things that we're doing already. The library for us, we had moved to Leon Valley Phase 4. We're gonna move on to 4+, because there was no 5.
Okay.
Limited appointments are open, except the librarian has asked that we kind of keep the same schedule as the computer time.
Ms. Reed, would you like to explain that? I think they're calling it browsing, right?
Yes,
Okay.
we're currently open for computer appointments, and we're asking to extend those same time periods for browsing appointments.
Okay.
So that we can still monitor the foot traffic, and we have staff that are still doing curbside and all the other activities as well. So we're just hoping to take this next step to open for browsing.
Okay, is it limited also, like the computers is limited to 4 per hour? Is
Right.
the browsing limited to 4 per hour as well?
We would do 4 to 5 depending on
Okay.
families, and so
Okay.
it would depend on the amount of traffic that we have in, and just making sure that we can keep that. So as we take appointments, when we take appointments for computers, we ask if someone will be coming with them.
Mhm.
We'll do the same thing for the browsing appointments and ask how many other family members will be coming. So if we have one family that has 3 or 4 children with them, and then we have another adult, we know that we're gonna be a little bit more spaced out, and so it's going to be just kind of guesswork initially, because we haven't had to do this
Sure.
before. But then we're hoping to get as many people browsing without being piled on top of each other in the stacks.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you. Does anyone have a question for Ms. Reed on the library while we have you here? Yes, and just on the library.
Curious what the duration of the appointments are.
We would do the 45-minute time frame as well, but what we do with the computer appointments is we allow them in knowing that they have to leave at 45, because we clean from 45 to the hour.
So I'm just thinking about my own family and kids, right? And we love coming to the library when we can. Is it 45 minutes from the time like they get there?
Okay, so we tell everyone the appointments start on the hour.
Okay.
If you get there at 2:20, then you have until 2:45.
Okay. I think Mr. Mata has his hand up.
Yes, Mr. Mata. Thank you. I saw him. Wanted to add to the conversation. Thank you, Mr. Mata.
Yeah. Eric Mata, Canterfield. So, just really concerned that we're having a council meeting here. Plenty of people have attended. We have stores, grocery stores open where plenty of people go and shop and touch items. And yet, please don't take this the wrong way, the library gets special treatment. It is a service to the community that it's been sorely lacking to our children that have not, for the most part, been at school. And I just think it's sad that we're over-regulating a needed resource, I guess at the request of librarians or some of the employees of the library. I just don't understand why we need to go about things this way. Governor has opened up the state. We've been going about this well. Our numbers are down. I just don't see what's so special about the library.
Thank you.
This needs to end, and I hope you guys do something about it. Come on, the kids need something here.
Let me ask Ms. Reed to address that, please, because, yeah. Yes, Ms. Reed.
We have 7 staff members total, including myself, and what we're doing currently, we're still operating a curbside services. So staff is still doing that while monitoring the computers. So we're still doing the additional services, and we don't have the staff members to fully open the door. It would take at least I would say at least one additional full-time and 2 additional part-time, or 2 additional full-time people to fully operate with everything that we need to do, because our goal is to help as many people in the community as possible. And so we can't just stop our virtual programming or our curbside programming because people want the library open, because people still aren't comfortable coming into the library and gathering. And so we have to maintain those services that we've added during COVID. And to do that while reintroducing the old services, we don't have the staff to do beyond what we're currently proposing to do.
Okay, all right. That makes a little bit more sense to me. So, okay, very good. Anything else? I don't think we're gonna be adding
I just wanna add, San
staff.
Antonio is open by
Yeah.
appointment only, and so.
And they're browsing now too,
And they're
right?
browsing by
Yeah.
appointment,
Mhm.
is my understanding as well. Like, it's still sectioned, they're not just doors open,
Yeah.
and you can fully.
They're doing brisk browsing, and they're actually counting, so they have a staff member dedicated to the door as well.
Okay.
And their programming is also not live, but what they're doing on their programming is each branch contributes to the overall whole, and so they have a lot more people doing a lot
Okay.
more.
On the virtual.
We're also not limiting our computer appointments for the browsing, and San Antonio does do that.
Okay.
Their
All right.
computer appointments are going to be in the afternoon only, I think, in most branches, and we're just asking to go ahead and keep the browsing with the same time frame as the computer appointments.
Very good, thank you. Yes, Mr. Miller?
Jack Miller, kind of feel, what's in the container there? I was just curious what that is that we're cleaning this up with. It's relevant to what I have to say. Do we know what it is?
It's disinfectant.
Okay. So, here's the deal. I've had children, and children, God bless their hearts, they are the most nastiest little creatures ever. Their hands go everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And their hands are dirty and they're all over everything. And so the library, having kids like Mr. Mata pointed out, they have their work cut out for them. And we owe it to our children to protect our children from their own God-given, beautiful nastiness. Okay? Because they don't have the discipline we have. I'm sure some of the extra things that the library staff have to do is serve as disinfectant. I think that's the reason they're shutting down for 15 minutes. I would just ask for some common sense to be put into that. I don't want, starting here in city council chambers, and let's apply it to the library and everywhere else. The answer to what you're wiping this down with does not need to be disinfectant. I want to know what's in there, because I want to know what the contact time is. I've been in the medical field, and I can assure you there's at least a 2-minute contact time on that for it to be effective. So what we have right here at this podium is disinfectant and virus, if there was virus on it. It hasn't sat here for 2 minutes and we're up here touching it and stuff like that. I'm not trying to criticize saying you're doing anything wrong. We all have the best intentions. But starting here, let's make sure we're disinfecting this properly. And it's at the library too, right? We want that, our kids. Eric, I wasn't gonna say anything to it until Eric said kids.
Okay.
And that's what sparked me there.
Okay.
But can we get this changed? I would recommend 2 podiums. Very simple. You have 1 podium, it gets wiped down after me. The next person goes up to the second podium that has already been sitting there with that contact time with that disinfectant. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Reed, I had a question. Do y'all still have to take each book when you get it back in and wipe every page? Remember
That's the standard practice
That
that
was
we-
where it was a year ago, so I didn't know.
Wiping the paper pages won't do anything.
Okay.
We do still quarantine, although evidence has shown that we don't need to quarantine. It goes back and forth between like the 7 days and the 48 hours. Cleaning books, the outside covers where most people touch, is a standard practice in libraries due to just the nature of of humans. There's oils, there's germs, there's everything, and that's a standard practice that we do with or without COVID. So we are still quarantining books. We're not cleaning every page because that would be ridiculous. The cleaning products we do use are hospital grade. I don't have a specific name, and part of the reason we need the 15 minutes is because we have different variations of them because of what we could get during the COVID time, and the drying and non-contact time from them ranges from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. And that's why we need that 15 minutes depending on the cleaning option that we have, and to make sure that as we clean, as we run out of one thing and have to move to another, that we still have that same amount of time without having to come back and change that time frame.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so we got the library, and we'll report on that this week, that you're open for browsing by appointment only at the top of the hour for 45 minutes. And I think people are going to be excited about that. Yes, sir, if you'd like to continue.
Okay, so other than saying that we're gonna continue following 34 and 10 and 13, GA 35 relates to COVID-19 vaccines and protection of Texans' private health information. GA 35 says that receiving a vaccine is strongly encouraged, but it's always going to be voluntary. Every person that's at least 16 years old, not eligible to get a shot. An individual COVID-19 vaccination status is private. So we're not going to have to be able to ask, hey, have you been vaccinated? Have you not been vaccinated? Any of that. It prohibits all that conduct. GA 35 is mainly letting Texans know that it's their choice. They don't have to talk about it to receive services. There's no government entity in the state of Texas that can put in anything in law that says you have to get a vaccine before I give you this service, or I allow you into this building, this business, whatever. In short, the governor pretty much told everybody, this is what it is, and it's gonna be this until I say different. I know I cut this very short.
Well, I thought it was interesting, if you'll go back, that he did have a thing about nursing homes.
Yes.
That distinguished.
Okay. At nursing homes,
that was different.
the nursing home can ask a patient, because it relates to all the other patients.
Right.
If you haven't had your vaccine, I don't think they're gonna allow you to take residence in that nursing home. Right. They're the only ones that can ask,
That's the only one.
because it's gonna affect their community. I cut it real short, it's getting late. If you want me to go through every slide, I will.
That's fine, unless there's any other questions. I mean, I think we all went through your presentation in yes, Counselor Stevens?
Yeah, so I'll move that we approve ordinance 9.1 as presented.
Okay.
Mayor, I think we need to motion first that this be an emergency ordinance and only require one read.
I said that before.
Right,
No,
so that, I think that's, in the past, we've had two separate motions for those emergency
let me
ordinances.
ask Roxy, because
That would be the safest thing to do.
that would be the safest thing to do. Okay, so let's motion for one read. Go ahead.
Right, so I'll
Counselor.
motion that we make this agenda item 9.1 an emergency ordinance.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Counselor Stevens and a second by Counselor Hefner to motion 9.1 ordinance as an emergency with only one read. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion does carry. Counselor Stevens, if you'll continue, please.
Then I'll motion that we approve ordinance 9.1 as presented.
And Counselor, all right, we have a motion by Counselor Stevens and a second by Counselor Hefner to approve 9.1 as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion does carry. So we'll keep the library as presented, and as we go forward, we can always adjust, amend as things change. So thank you very much. Really appreciate you staying. All righty, very good. Moving then to.
I'm sorry, Mayor, just to clarify, the discussion we had was that the library would expand to phase 4 plus.
Yeah.
Okay.
But-
Sorry, I just misunderstood what
No,
you said.
but I've heard from some of the citizens that why are we doing this? Why can't we do why can't we just open it up, that kind of thing. So that's what I meant.
Oh,
So thank you for that clarification. It's getting late.
As
It's
presented.
okay.
is what we're
As
discussing.
presented,
Okay.
exactly. So I know Mr. Mata and several of you said, why can't we open it up? And, so for right now, it's gonna be the 4+, and then we can look at it as we go forward. So thank you for that. But I appreciate you clarifying that because who knows what I said. Okay, moving then to 9.2 ordinance. Ms. Costley, if you'll please read that ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Leon Valley, Texas, City Council authorizing execution of a 3-year agreement with City of Leon Valley and Gilbert Corrales for city manager services.
All right, this is the second read of the city manager contract. And Ms. Caldera, do we have any updates on that?
It's the same as what was presented at the last meeting.
Okay.
There's been no, we did fix the retro for the performance evaluation, which Mr. Cross was fine with. There was some minor here and there grammar stuff, and we made those corrections.
Okay, very good. Mr. Stevens, go ahead.
I guess we'll see if there's citizen comments, but I'll motion that we approve 9.2 as it is in the agenda packet.
All right. We have a motion by Counselor Stevens and a second by Counselor Orozco to approve 9.2 as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion does carry. Then moving then to 9.3, Ms. Costley, if you'll please read that ordinance.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Leon Valley, Texas, amending Chapter 15 zoning code allowing short-term rentals in certain residential zoning districts, mobile food units in non-residential zoning districts, permanent makeup, cosmetic tattooing in non-residential zoning districts, restaurants in the B1 zoning districts, and gymnasiums, physical fitness facilities in the B2 zoning district, providing for repeal or severability and savings clauses, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, very good. Welcome back,
Thank
Mr.
you, Mayor.
Milan. Let's see, do we have an update on, we have about, 4 or 5 different, 5 all in one. So how do you want to handle that? Any update on any of them? I can't remember from the last time. We were going to ask you to do something on one of them, I thought.
Y'all were going to ask me to look at potential ways or explore potential ways to regulate the number of food trucks.
Okay.
And so what I did, and I think I had mentioned just from experience in San Marcos, they had issues within their downtown area, College Town. They had issues with bars or establishments that have on-premises consumption of alcohol, and they regulate drinking establishments sort of the same way that staff had originally proposed regulating food trucks, which is through SUP. And so y'all were concerned, okay, how do we decide how many we can have? And if we get 20, is it going to be fair to the 21st person just say, oh, sorry, we think we're at our limit now? So instead of dealing with that down the road, looking at that on the front end from a policy perspective. So what they do there, I went back and looked at their code, what they do there is they actually, in their code, they define the CBD, their central business district. And they say, within this area that's in our code, the city will not approve any more than 25 SUPs for drinking establishments. So they just set a cap in their code. And so that way everybody knows if you're, a business person and you're looking at opening up an establishment, probably your first step before you go and make that investment is call the city and say, okay, how many are you at right now? And so there's always kind of a running number. I mean, that can present some issues where people are always in a queue, but to get in there. But that's how they address that. And then all of those establishments always have their SUPs have a 3-year term. So if one of them has issues, one place is just super rowdy and police are constantly getting called there, they're constantly breaking the terms of their SUP, well, maybe that'll be terms for not getting to stay. So they've got some mechanisms in place there to not only have it be really transparent how many can go in there, but there's also mechanisms for making sure that the best actors are awarded.
And so is that your recommendation?
That'd be my recommendation if the council was looking at trying to set a cap or come up with a plan beforehand to address how many, that would be my recommendation on how to address that is, you know, we can define an area. I mean, it would probably mean that we can't approve the item tonight, but, yeah, I would recommend that, and then maybe the next step is the council could say, oh, if y'all like that idea, maybe we could look at defining an area, Bandera Road, Wurzbach, you know, certain areas, say, okay, within this area, we could look at the number of properties. I mean, it might be a little bit of work, but that's definitely a planning way to look at it, I think.
All right, sounds good. Any comments on the food truck? I had a question on the short-term rentals, but I didn't want to mix it, so let's take the food trucks. Any comment on that recommendation? You want to postpone it and ask Mr. Milan to bring us back a proposal, an SUP for where we would, what the business district would be and how many? Okay. Counselor Edwards? Yes, Counselor Stevens?
So I don't know the correct answer to this, but I'd like to see some type of expedited process for short-term mobile food units, for businesses that perhaps want to just do it like a couple of days out of the calendar year. I don't know what the best route, but something that's like very simple, streamlined, logical.
Yeah.
You mean like for their employees?
Yeah, like if Bandera Bohl wanted to have like some big event or something and they wanted to
okay.
get food trucks in their parking lot.
Okay, all right, yes, Counselor Hefner?
Sorry, I mean, I think when we have people who run food trucks, right, they're not exclusively on Valley, so I think it should be fairly simple that if a food truck is licensed to operate in San Antonio, that we can have reciprocity with that agreement, you know, especially for short-term or temporary things. I'm thinking about 4th of July, right? We're bringing in food trucks that aren't just like, somebody didn't like pop the trunk on their Tahoe or something and selling tacos out the back. But, you know, if they've got those agreements in place with San Antonio and can provide that documentation, I don't see any reason why not. You know, from this perspective, I know you've put a lot of work into having all of these together, so I'm fine moving forward with these as they're written, and then if we need to add additional layers onto the process later on, we can.
Okay, anything else? I just had a few questions on the short-term rental. Can I move to that? Okay, it's a 30-day limit. I wanted to know how will this be regulated? Noise ordinance, we've already got one in place, so that covers that. How about trash and parking? We have ordinances that regulate. I'm just trying to think of issues that might come up. And the number of short-term rentals on one street, I think we talked about that. Do we need to, are you saying that maybe we just pass this and if there is a problem, then we bring it back? I don't know. What would be the elements of an SUP for short-term rentals? Because I noticed on your chart, I can't remember what city had it, but they had SUP. Any fees associated with any of these short-term rental or food trucks or whatever? So that fees is something else. And yeah, okay, that's it.
No,
Go ahead.
yeah, good. Remind me if I leave a couple of your questions off there.
No, that's
but
okay.
I'll just start with how are they regulated? In our research, you know, cities, they do a combination of code enforcement. You know, we always have our code enforcement officers. We have 3 of them. They're always patrolling areas. You know, they're proactive. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're just going through neighborhoods looking for issues, but, you know, and obviously our police department is responding to complaints. You know, if there's a rowdy party going on, somebody may complain. If not, when it's happening, they'll complain the next day, and then we'll investigate that. In terms of, and that's just when you're breaking the law, right? You know, breaking noise ordinances, so there's always the police mechanism to it. And then there's the proactive way. You know, a lot of cities are,
Yeah, because we're hearing that.
a lot of cities, they're companies like Lodging Revs or Host Compliance. I think City of San Antonio uses Host Compliance. They're the larger one. Lodging Revs is a little bit smaller startup. And so, you know, you can hire these companies and they actually monitor for you. You know, the whole idea behind these companies is they're monitoring because cities can get their hotel taxed. And so That's how they make their money, is by making sure that they're helping cities capture as much revenue. And so not only does that help you make sure you're getting your sales tax revenue, they're also keeping tabs. They're looking at VRBO and Airbnb, and they're looking at, okay, who all is registered in your city? And so they've got a map there. So you pay them a monthly fee to sort of be your tracker. You know, they're kind of an extra arm of code enforcement. So obviously they're not out writing citations, but that would probably be, we would use them. You know, Mr. Cox, you know, would probably be more involved with that, since that's economic development and coordinating with them.
So that would be a form of registration by going through this program that you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am. You know, if the city chose to go through a registration process, we'd probably recommend using host compliance or lodging rugs to help us make sure that that everybody is staying registered. So that's kind of how we stay on top of it.
Okay, very good.
And so I think your question, you know, how do you deal with parking? You know, every residence, I think, single family dwelling is required to have at least 2 parking spaces in addition to your garage. So we also have parking on the street. And so obviously, you know, without an SUP, it'd be difficult to really look at that on a case by case basis. You know, some cities, you know, when I worked in Midland, we just required SUPs we required an SUP, you know, for a mother-in-law suite. If you wanted to add any kind of accessory dwelling that you live in, it requires an SUP, and we always look at parking. You know, we're gonna have an extra parking space. And so, you know, so if the council felt comfortable, you know, with our current parking requirements, you know, then that, or if not, then maybe that's one thing to look at through SUP, or something administrative. You know, if you're gonna have a short-term rental, you need to, you know, when you register, maybe that's something we look at during the registration process too. If we did that, you know, you need to show how many parking spaces do you have, and if, you know, you only have 2 parking spaces and in the street, well, maybe that's, you know, that's a question for council to ask. Like, I mean, anybody can park on the street, but do we want to assume that we're going to have enough room on the street for, you know, people that are staying in short-term rentals and the normal amount of cars that would be on the street anyway? So I think the parking issue is definitely one that's a good question, because that's kind of difficult to solve if you're not doing an SUP.
Okay.
And yeah.
Councilor Edwards had his hand up. Councilor?
One question, how many Airbnbs do you think are actually functioning in Leon Valley right now under the radar?
It's a good question. So back last year when we first started looking at this, we interviewed Eric, former associate planner. He and I interviewed 2 different companies. We got on a webinar with Host Compliance and with Lodging Revs. Lodging Revs said we had 22. Host Compliance said we had 8. So, you know, we never went, you know, further with the process. So it'd be interesting to, you know, get back online with them and a year later have them, you know, see what the disparity is again. So somewhere between, I'd probably say 10 to 22 right now.
Yeah, I think I know where one is on my street, and so because of the noise level and the amount of time people were up chatting and listening to music and so forth. So my concern about this is, I mean, I'm not opposed to Airbnbs or whatever you want to call them, but I just think that, you know, there might be some way to regulate it so that you don't have like maybe 20 on Forest Bend. Or any other street, Seneca or Rousseau or wherever, and that's not part of this ordinance, right?
No, sir. This ordinance doesn't have any kind of spacing or limiting mechanisms to it.
So if we were to pass this tonight, it would just allow short-term rentals for 30 days and nothing else, no other restrictions?
As currently written, yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, I'm just wanting that clarified. So if we passed it and then we start having issues, that would probably take, you know, probably 2 to 3 months, because we'd have to have 2 reads to add an SUP to the short-term rental. So I just wanted, I mean, I would imagine. So we couldn't address the issue in a timely fashion if we needed to. It would take a while. Is that fair to say?
Right, and so I think, you know, I think there's a few questions for the council to consider, you know, or a few aspects of this. based on the building code, and the residential code and our zoning code, this would require, each of these short-term rentals would require a certificate of occupancy, to be able to go in there, because it wouldn't fall under the classification. Our zoning code has a home occupation, and so we don't require COs for home occupation if you operate out of your residence. But if you're operating a short-term rental, we're gaining hotel and motel tax. It's considered a business entity, so you'd have to get a certificate of occupancy to be able to do that. And so I don't know what the legality is of saying, giving somebody a CO, and if we change the code, I don't know, maybe that's a question for Det Navarro. But to my knowledge, you'd have to get a certificate of occupancy to be able to operate that.
Okay, can I just follow up on that? So you're saying that it would be a business, they'd need a certificate of occupancy, say they charged, let's just say $1,000 a week for the short-term rental, then the city would get hotel motel tax on that?
Right, and you'd have to, we'd have to come up with a registration process to make sure that, whether it's through lodging revs and they're helping to monitor, you'd register with the city, and that way we'll make sure you have a sales tax certificate. And we can confirm that those funds are in fact going to the city. That's how we do it with any other.
Okay, but right now, in this ordinance, it doesn't address any of that.
No, ma'am.
Okay, well, I think we still need to address it, don't you? Yes, Councilor Hefner.
No.
No? Okay. Go ahead.
If I run a business from my home, if I'm working from a home office, do I require a COO?
No, you don't. That's
Why do we require a COO for these?
And again, this is a zoning code thing, and so, again, I'm not making the rules here. This is just, if you operate, a small assisted living facility where you have 3 people, you're requiring a certificate of occupancy. Any kind of business where you're running a business operation, whether it's, an auto shop, or whether you're operating, a short-term rental where you're registered with the city to have people come and go from the residence, it still requires a certificate of occupancy. But if you're just working from your house, that falls under the classification in our zoning code for a home occupancy. So we can look at changing that if you guys want to, but that's just the way it is right now.
But the way we've written it into the ordinance, this is permitted by right. Short-term rentals would be permitted by right in any residential property.
It would be permitted by right, but the way it's currently, the way the whole entire zoning ordinance is structured, it's not exempting a short-term rental from having to get a certificate of occupancy.
So any other activity in a residential house that's permitted by right, I would also need a certificate of occupancy for.
Well, like just for living there?
Well, I mean, I could pull up the permitted use table right now and just go down the list.
Well, I mean, I don't know, I guess I'd ask which things are you asking about, like, that are allowed in a single-family district?
I'll yield to my colleagues here, but I'll pull it up.
Okay, very good. Councilor Stevens.
I mean, there's some things that are, there's not a lot of things that are allowed in a single-family dwelling district. You're allowed to have a single-family home.
How about a group home?
Group home, they have to have a certificate of occupancy. Assisted living facilities, they have to have a certificate of occupancy. I can't think of anything else that happens in a single-family dwelling district that doesn't need a certificate of occupancy. I mean, you don't need a CO to live there.
Right.
We don't require that. The International Residential Code does speak to requiring certificates of occupancy, but most cities just don't do that. Usually when you build a house or you get a final inspection on it, that usually satisfies that it's been built to code standards, but.
All right, Councilor Stevens, go ahead.
So I talked to a couple of people after our last meeting regarding this, and I realized there's litigation that's ongoing in several cities, Austin, New Braunfels, federal lawsuit in New Braunfels.
On what issue?
On
Short-term
short-term
rental?
rentals,
Okay,
yeah.
I just wanted to
So
be
we cannot not allow short-term rentals, period. Like, we cannot prevent them from occurring because there's now case law about that. However, we can regulate it, but the question is, how should we regulate it? How much is too much? How can we? I realized, so somebody that does have an Airbnb in Leon Valley, not currently renting it out, she told me that Airbnb makes her register through, but it references her through the city of San Antonio, So she goes through the city of San Antonio process, though her house is in Leon Valley, she goes through the city of San Antonio process, and generally what they try to do, and it's kind of based on the honor system from what I understand, like 3% of the gross proceeds are given to San Antonio as the hotel, motel,
So we
like
don't get that.
the hot tax, so we aren't getting that. However, I think we're kind of coming at this from the wrong like, I think if we want, and the problem is we may want to regulate this if we have problems, but I also think that we should come at it with a different approach of like, let's embrace, so think about it, these people, they're already paying property taxes, like a lot of property taxes here as well, and we can be making hotel and motel tax, and they can win, they can rent out their house and make more income, and then the people that are staying there can win because more competition equals lower prices for rentals in this area. So I think we should embrace them and almost do everything to not charge them anything. If we feel like it's necessary to have like a fire inspection, which I feel like would be limited to making sure they have a fire extinguisher in their house. Like maybe we give them a fire extinguisher and say, here's the deal, you have to register every year for free. And then we want to see your, whatever if we want to charge hotel motel tax, which I think almost everybody with Airbnb does, say we want to see every year you have to file this form that says you had X amount, or quarterly or whatever, you had X amount of dollars of revenue, and we get 3% of that because that's our hotel and motel tax. I think that would be much more beneficial to everybody as a whole, because what I did learn from Airbnb owners is they don't care about, like they think, you know, you don't want your house trashed either if you're renting your house out. So you don't mind some regulation, you just don't want overburdensome regulation regarding your property.
But my understanding is our short-term rental, as it's written right now, doesn't even tie it into sales, hotel motel tax.
Right.
So I think we need to at least do that.
Yeah, I didn't,
mean,
again,
why
Councilor
are we
Hefner,
not getting that benefit?
again, Councilor Hefner asked me to bring this forward, so I didn't really like, you know, go through and assume the things that the councils want. I kind of brought this code amendment to you guys as sort of a shell for y'all, for us to be able to talk about, do what we're doing right now. You know, again, to Councilor Hefner's concern, you know, I'm not gonna say that I'm 100% sure we could just say, no CO is required, but if you guys don't want to require a certificate of occupancy, let me go back and do research on that and see if we can, like, you know, maybe we can make provisions in the code that don't require that if that's what you guys want to do.
All right.
We just, anything that's of this nature does require CO right now with the way the building.
I think that,
Hang on a second, we've got
Councilman Stevenson's hit the nail right on the
wait a
head.
minute.
I think you're right.
Counselor Roscoe, I'm going to call on you first,
I'm
okay?
sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah, we
I
need
think
to
that
kind of keep it
Councilor
rolling.
Stevens hit the nail right on the head. I think that we should have some type of regulation, just not overbearing, to the point where they'll be able to run their business, but yet have some type of control where things would not be smashed up and go from there. I think I totally agree with you.
Okay, yes. If I don't see any other counselor, then Mr. Martinez, come right up.
Mayor, Council, I agree with Councilor Stevens and Councilor Hefner. We do not need to make more stringent laws and SUPs and certificate of occupancies. Keep it simple. The only thing we need to do is verify that we get the hot tax. As for them trashing the house, that's not our issue. That's between the renter and the homeowner. But why involve the city in something that we have no control over? If a renter does trash a property, the owner calls the police or they charge him a deposit or whatever for the damage. But that's not a city function. So keep it simple. And as for the food trucks, we're a city of 3.5 miles. How many food trucks can come in here or where can they set up where we have 25 food trucks in this city? There's no way that even can happen. So why are we even concerning ourselves with limiting the number of food trucks? Thank you.
Mr. Mon, what needs to be done to this ordinance to allow, hot tax to be charged on a short-term rental? That's my question.
I have that answer. So,
Okay, go ahead.
Airbnb has a list of municipalities in Texas that have agreements with them. You basically write an agreement that says, Airbnb will automatically collect taxes on behalf of your municipality. They don't know any difference right now that Leon Valley exists separate from San Antonio, as about a third of our residents don't. So, it's simple enough to set up that agreement, and I think that's something we can direct staff to do.
Separate from our ordinance.
Correct.
Okay.
That's an agreement between the city and Airbnb, and if you want to expand that and have similar agreements with VRBO and the 3 or 4 major players in the industry, that's fine. But ever since the 2018 Supreme Court ruling, these platforms have been required to collect the taxes on behalf of hosts. Because they don't want a host who has one home having to do a tax filing. It's burdensome and unnecessary. So it's simply getting the agreement with the platform, the service provider, that they're going to remit taxes within our boundary for any property within our boundary to us rather than to San Antonio. That's something that doesn't need to be codified into legislation. I think that's something that's simply an agreement between the city and the platform.
And have you done that in the past, Mr. Milan, in any of your cities, these agreements?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
I'll share a link with Ms. Clear and Mr. Fallon.
I just think that that's revenue that the city, can earn because of this, yes.
So the resident that I talked to in Leon Valley, so she said that, you're referring to the marketplace facilitator tax law, the Wayfair versus North Dakota or whatever Supreme Court case. But the way San Antonio, marketplace facilitator tax law applies to Texas, but it doesn't apply to localities unless it's a sophisticated enough system. So like Amazon collects for local municipalities because they have all the crime control and prevention, transportation district, all that breakdown. Airbnb doesn't have that algorithm set up for San Antonio. They have to pay. It's not built into the platform, and I'm sure they would love, because they're going to generate more revenue. I was told that that the residents are charged the 3%, and that they're expected to give that to the city of San Antonio on a quarterly or monthly basis, and I think they kind of choose. So
yeah, just to provide some additional context around that, the state of Texas is 6%. So I'm guessing that if COSA has that agreement with people who are in Leon Valley, it's because COSA knows that they're in Leon Valley, and they're saying, hey, you give us 3% and you can be under us, and we're not going to say anything in Leon Valley. That would be my guess. I don't have any evidence to back that up, but the state, I'm looking at it right now, the state hot tax is 6%, and it could be an additional layer on that for local, but that would be my guess. And yes, there are certainly economies of scale that Airbnb have, because they have literally listings all over the world, just like Amazon.
Right, so what I'm saying, so Texas just approved the marketplace facilitator tax law like in 2019, and so that impacted a lot of the e-commerce world. I don't think that there's a way for Texas, I guess let's reach out and find out if Airbnb collects and remits locality and VRBO and all those other applications. Because I was just told that they don't have that ability. They charge the 6%, they remit it to the state of Texas, but as far as the locality breakdown, and the reason for that is because hotel and motel tax changes more frequently, or probably less frequently in some places, but that's not regulated by the comptroller. So it's not as, the algorithms aren't, like when we approve a tax rate, it's given to the state comptroller. Hot taxes are not. So
right. It's an agreement just like we would do with Google Fiber, for example. Similar agreement between a company and the entity.
Right. I'd like to see it. I think we should reach out.
Can we just pull that piece out and bring it back with this agreement?
Well, I would say, what we're talking about tonight is just zoning. And so, when it comes to hot tax and potential registration, those kinds of things, that is potentially a new article in our business regulations of our code where we get into that. Sort of like, you know, I use an analogy like with assisted living facilities. You know, assisted living facilities, we'll just talk about the where and the when and that kind of, you know, and what zoning districts, that kind of stuff. And then when it comes to having to register with the fire department so they can do annual fire inspection, that's all business stuff. So right now it's just land use, yes or no with SUP, yes or no on that kind of stuff. And so, so what we're doing tonight is kind of simple, but we're talking through the details of it to figure out what else to put into it.
Yes,
So-
Councilor Hefner, go ahead.
One last point, right? So the things that we talked about in terms of the gap in our zoning code, right? Bed and breakfast, guest house, hotel, motel, blah, blah, blah. So these are the things that are listed in our code that are permitted by right at a residential use. Adult care, child care, single family dwelling, two family dwelling, multifamily dwelling, dwelling townhouse, dwelling manufactured, dwelling garden house, bed and breakfast, boarding house, congregate residence, like, are all of these, home office is on here as well, home occupation is on here. So which things on the permitted use table require a COO and which ones don't?
Typically, anything that is governed by the building code does require a certificate of occupancy. So the International Residential Code, that governs single-family uses and two-family uses.
Right, and so we're updating the zoning code, not the building code. The building isn't changing, it's still a single-family residence. And we're allowing a permitted use, which is a modern permitted use of single-family, or short-term rentals. I don't see that involves the building code at all, because I don't need to change anything about the building. Like, I mean, we're not talking about the aquarium where they're moving walls around, right? We're talking about a single-family home just being rented out. There's no change to the building code. I don't see why that would require a COO.
Certificates of occupancy are.
Right, no, I was just gonna add, like, you do the same thing with the at-home daycare, right? Like, you're not really changing anything to the building, you're letting kids stay with you. We still require a COO because we need to make sure that the building is, you know. So those things, but if y'all don't, I mean, if you're saying this council as a body does not wanna issue a CO for short-term rentals, the staff is not opposed to we just need to know that that's the direction as a body that y'all wanna move in. And we will research doing that.
Exactly what we can do. Sorry, Chris, what we do is, and so if you look at our city code, you know, we have our zoning code which regulates land use. And then certificates of occupancy, there's a section in our zoning code that says you need to have a certificate of occupancy to conduct a use. But there's a relationship between a certificate of occupancy and the building code. And the building code and the fire code are what establish use classifications type. When we issue a certificate of occupancy, my department coordinates with Chief Naughton's department, and we look and say, how does the building code and the fire code classify this use? Is it a Group B business? Is it a mercantile use? Is it a storage use? And so based on that establishes how many people can be in there. If you look at one of our COs, we have that on there. And so, you know, a CO is not, it's not just about, you know, doing improvements. It's about us establishing, is this structure certified to conduct the particular activity that's going to be going on? And so with a short-term rental, you know, as this ordinance is proposed, yes, it could be you renting out a room in your house, but it could be an individual just renting out an entire house for a weekend. So that's no longer a single-family dwelling use. Now it's a lodging type of use. And so that's why, as things are written right now, that's the way we interpret. But as Crystal said, if we want to change that, we can just update the building code to say this doesn't require a certificate of occupancy.
If tomorrow I decide to rent out my home.
Mr. Hefner, excuse me. Raise your hand. Thank you. Go ahead. I know
If
it's
tomorrow,
late.
a normal rental property, do I require a COO?
No, it's a single family use.
It's a single family dwelling.
But
There's no difference. There's no difference between a long-term rental and a short-term rental in terms of what's happening in that.
But in terms of the building code and the fire code, they're different types of uses. You're talking about a transient use. And so this is, you know, and I'd love to sit down and talk about you, but if you read the building code, you're talking about a transient use versus a permanent use, and the building code and the fire code regard that differently.
Well, the only thing I'm hearing is that you're tying the building code and the fire code and that goes back to safety. right?
The fire code doesn't govern international residential code, it just governs building code. But what I'm saying
Well, I
is
mean,
there are
I'm just-
different types of activities. You know, if you look at the building as, you know, some type of lodging situation, that's a transient use, and so it's classified by the building code differently. So that's all
Okay.
I'm trying to get. But if you don't want to do a CO, you can change it.
I think our whole function as a government is to protect health, safety, and welfare, and I don't want to compromise that. So I don't know what the right answer is, but I just think we need to keep that in mind. Yes, Councilor Bradshaw.
I think we're beating this subject to death.
I know we
And,
are. We need to move
I agree
on.
with Mr. Hefner. There's no difference between renting out your home for a year, renting out your home for a month, renting out your home for a night. I think it's the same thing. You know, if it's a home, people are staying there, it's safe or it's not safe. And if it's not safe, guess what? You're not gonna be renting it out because everybody's gonna say, hey, this is a mess. It's, you know, there's issues there. That's how Airbnb and all these VRBO, they work. They work off of reviews, there's pictures. People are gonna say, don't stay here. And so they're not gonna
They
last.
evaluate it, yeah. Okay.
I think
That's what you're saying.
we're again, creating a problem where that problem doesn't exist.
Okay. Councilor Stevens, do you have?
Yeah, so when I'll try to quickly say this, but if you go to Bear County's website and act like you live out in the county, not in a municipality, they don't do any certificates of occupancy or fire inspection or any of that in any residential area unless you request it. And you can want it. So some people may want it for certain reasons. But the main point of that, and as a business owner in Leon Valley, I can say I've gotten a certificate of occupancy. My business is pretty simple, but it's almost, aside from the fire component of it, it's almost a joke for existing businesses because maybe there's electrical hazards and I get that, but the fire hazards, I think we don't need to force people that live in homes to go through that process. A part of ours, I bought a brand new fire extinguisher for my business in the box sealed. I had to go and get it tagged. I paid like $7 to get it tagged. You wanna know what they did at the fire inspection place? They said, oh, new fire extinguisher? Okay, here's a tag. They didn't test it. They didn't do anything with it. And so we don't need to make people go through that type of bureaucratic elements that it added no safety. It just made me pay money and made me waste time. And so I think that if we really want to prioritize safety, let's say, hey, if you have an Airbnb, and we can do this another day, but if you have an Airbnb, make an escape plan, have it on the refrigerator, make sure you have a fire extinguisher in your house, and that's it. And if there's other issues that arise, like, we can address them, you know, as they come up, but.
Y'all have these building codes adopted as is. Okay, so, you know, like with the fire department, they adopt the International Fire Code, and then they have supplements in it. They have a long section in the code where they have added things on top of this fire code that they just adopted wholesale. And so in our code, we've adopted the building code, we've adopted the plumbing code, you know, the electrical code, the mechanical code, and we don't really have any supplements to those. So what you guys can totally do this, and I'm not saying I want to make sure everything in the city gets a CO, it's up to you guys, but if you want to, we can add supplements to the section of the building code that kind of lists out things that like, all right, these things don't require a certificate of occupancy, because the way I interpret the code right now, it would, but y'all can totally amend that to have it run in sync with us to where, you know, short-term rental is, you know, we regard that kind of like a single-family use, and it's not required. So it's not a no, it's just, we just need to do one extra, or a couple extra things before we approve this.
Okay, all right. Anyone else before we move for some sort of a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we amend this to not require certificate of occupancy for short-term rentals and adopt the rest of the ordinance as written.
I don't know if we can do that. We don't have that agenda. We don't.
I mean, this agenda
This is
says
totally separate.
discussion, possible recommendation on ordinance.
Well, this is for the zoning code, and so what we need to do is amend the building code. So I'd have to bring that back. I didn't know you